Today on
Doomed!
The global right wing has found their new Canadian trucker convoy, and it comes in the form of Dutch farmers. Today, on this episode of Doomed, we will be diving into the Dutch farmers' protest and why exactly the right, even people as big as Fox News' #1 host, Tucker Carlson, have decided to glom onto what's going on over in the Netherlands. And let me pull myself up and my guest up onto the screen. Just give me 1 second here. Here we go. And joining me now to discuss all this is Anya van Wagtendonk. She is the misinformation reporter over at Grid. Anya, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Anya, I was looking into this, and I remembered seeing that Tucker Carlson segment, at least one of them, on these Dutch farmer protests, and thinking, what's going on here? Why is Tucker Carlson paying attention to what's going on with these Dutch farmers? And I'm looking into it, and I couldn't quite tell exactly. And you and me were discussing a little bit before we went live, but and this might be something that a lot of people are confused over, if they even have heard of what's going on. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly is going on over there? What are Dutch farmers protesting over?
Yeah, so this is actually several decades kind of in the making. The EU named many years ago that nitrogen emissions in the EU were going to be a problem, and then kind of never enforced any type of action being taken. And so a couple of years ago, the need to reduce nitrogen became sort of more officially an EU priority. And the Dutch government in about 2019 sort of finally started setting actual goals. The Netherlands is by far the largest nitrogen producer in the EU. It is the second largest agricultural exporter after the United States. And so a significant amount, not all of it, but a significant amount of its nitrogen emissions come from its agricultural industry, and particularly the livestock industry. And so as a result, targeting nitrogen emissions in the Netherlands means targeting livestock farming. And so there was actually a smaller protest movement similar to what we're seeing now in 2019 when these goals were first kind of announced. You may have seen the images of tractors descending on The Hague. There have since been laws passed so that tractors can no longer enter The Hague. And then, of course, COVID happened. And so that kind of squashed these goals a little bit. And so in the last couple of months, the government has kind of re-upped its efforts to cap emissions in a way that I think probably felt kind of abrupt and sudden to the people who would be affected by these policies. So the government rolled out this plan that said essentially that something like 30,000 farms or farmers would be affected by these new caps. Either they would need to stop farming entirely, or they would need to drastically reduce their livestock quantities. And so as a result, people started protesting, first just sort of in response to what felt like an overreach by the government, kind of an unfair burden placed on one sector of the economy or one particular group of workers. And then rather quickly, over the course of several weeks, a number of other kind of populist politicians and media figures, first in the Netherlands and then more broadly, kind of, as you say, glommed on to this cause. And it's really become, it's a very visually kind of striking example of populist outrage, similar to what we saw in the Canadian convoy, similar to the Gilets Jaunes in France several years ago. It's very much taken on kind of that tone and fervor.
Right. And first of all, I want to thank you because I could not remember what word. I could not figure out what word I was looking for, and it's glom onto. I don't know why I thought it was like globs, but thank you for that. It's one of those days, So That's sort of the thing that I was like, it's not clear as someone who's over here in the United States, who obviously, isn't so, and I'm assuming this is a lot of people who even pay attention to like this show does, tracks what's going on with the right. I couldn't quite, it seemed like from me, and it seems like from what you told me before and what you said just now, um, that I was correct to understand it like this, but this Dutch farmers movement didn't start out analogous with like the Canadian trucker convoy, which from the get go, from the very start, was launched by, these right wing figures in Canada and even some of the United States who use their cachet to help create this movement over there. And, they had conspiracy theorists and other, right wingers, far right movement members from the get go getting this all going. This didn't start like that from what you're telling me.
I think that's right. I will say, the protest started out as sort of a farmers movement. That's how they identified, and the image of the tractor was really kind of significant. And so it started out with blockades, and then what really kind of started to pick up on social media, drawing, I think, larger and more international attention, included some of these more kind of spectacular videos of farmers spraying manure on city buildings, setting hay bales on fire in the streets. And so I think that drew a lot of attention. And then, of course, once I think it started attracting that attention, it kind of helped to feed this idea that because the mainstream media, quote unquote, was not covering these protests, right, that there's kind of this conspiratorial element. And so then that starts kind of bringing in all of these more fringe kind of ideas about who is at war with the farmers. And so the farmer remained kind of the central symbol, but not necessarily kind of the focus of the protests at this point. The protests now, they've become quite a bit more aggressive, much more kind of concentrated, and then the social media and also just sort of right-wing media attention placed on it has a lot more to do with these ideas of New World Order, these kind of fringe populist right-wing conspiracies have kind of taken center stage in the narrative more than, kind of the nuts and bolts of the actual government plan to, again, curb nitrogen emissions.
Right, right. So this, did this movement have, more broader support, I guess? Then, like, how did like the average, person living in the Netherlands sort of, who's not maybe in the, the political bubble over there, or how were they sort of responding to the farmers' protest, and now how are they? Like, has that changed over time?
So it completely depends on who you ask. Obviously, people who support these protests, they point to rightfully areas of the country where they are enjoying quite a bit of support, or where there's kind of a large kind of vocal minority that comes out to support the protests. People I speak with who live in the cities or who are university students, they are more likely to say either that they don't encounter these protests quite as much because they're taking place in more kind of rural agricultural areas of the country, or that it doesn't speak to kind of the broader Dutch culture of having a little bit more understanding of kind of like a commitment to a social good than it's perhaps common in this country. But that said, it does seem, again, from the people that I've spoken to on the ground, that the support has dwindled a little bit in recent weeks, again, as the protests have become a little bit more aggressive. And certainly, the ruling governmental party and the Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, have sort of come out and said that they do not support this movement, and that it is, I'm forgetting the exact phrasing that the Prime Minister used, but essentially that it's sort of unacceptable. And so it has, I think, become a little bit more clearly divided between the populist movements that exist and that do have representation in Dutch Parliament, and that enjoy some support in various parts of the country, versus elsewhere, where I think it has become a little bit of a nuisance, particularly, as they enter European August, which means everyone just wants to go on vacation.
Right. Is this sort of like, the equivalent to like, I feel like here in the United States, whenever there is sort of a movement to move off of things like coal, and you hear like, here you'll hear like Democrats talk about, closing the coal mines. And the Republicans will jump onto that and say, "Oh, coal miners, Democrats want to put you out of work." And then, Democrats sort of fail at the messaging. Republicans are not telling the truth about how, in reality, what the government would like to do is move those coal miners into, cleaner energy, more green energy, not just like take away their jobs, but actually, pay them to be trained to deal with green energy. Is it sort of like that dynamic over there where like they're just, one side is just lacking the ability to connect with how these issues can affect farmers and sort of, I guess, sort of explain or even roll out a policy that better helps them transition, like provides that sort of support? Like, is there some sort of dynamic like that going on there?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very helpful analogy for two reasons. One is obviously the kind of personal financial implications of losing your job, losing the career that you've committed yourself to. The Dutch government, I think, did a pretty clumsy job of explaining exactly what you say, kind of what other options would be available. I believe that the plan is for the farms that will be shuttered is to buy them out at 130% of their valuation, something like this. But that wasn't communicated. Also, just sort of like the actual farms that will be affected. They did not do a particularly good job, I think, of sort of identifying that, so that people felt, again, kind of surprised by the news that perhaps their farms were going to be shut down or taken away. But then also, to the coal miners' point, I think also there's really a sense of identity that people have wrapped up with their careers, obviously. I mean, I have that as a journalist. And if you are a fourth or fifth generation coal miner or farmer, livestock farmer, it is more than a job, right? It's part of your identity.
Right.
And so to kind of like not acknowledge, I think, the relationship that people have to their land and to their animals feels a little bit, I think, short-sighted. Again, when rolling these things out, to just not take into account that there is an emotional component as well as a personal sort of financial component, and that the financial compensation doesn't really do anything to address the former.
Right. Now, I'm assuming that over there, the right wing parties over there latched onto this earlier than the right wingers in the U.S. But who was among like the earliest, on the U.S. right to use the Dutch farmer protests, or at least cover it in some way?
So I started seeing it kind of early on right-wing social media, and so sort of influencers there rather than in kind of the mainstream right-wing media like Fox News. One of the things that kind of jumped out at me as I was noticing this, again, I'm part Dutch, and so I never know if I'm sort of picking these things up because it's actually like of interest or just because of my wonky last name. But then I saw that Tucker Max was tweeting about it, which was a name that I had not thought about in about 10 years.
Right.
And so, but he was getting a ton of traction. And so once I saw that it was getting kind of attention, again, not just on far right kind of platforms themselves, but then also among Twitter celebrities like Tucker Max, but who were espousing, again, kind of these kind of conspiratorial explanations for what was going on. That's when I started kind of paying more close attention. And then there was about a week in like mid-July when it was getting a ton of coverage on Fox News. And so when it makes that kind of leap from far right internet to mainstream social media to mainstream media, that's when I think as a misinformation reporter, that's when I really kind of start to pay attention. And so Tucker Carlson in particular, and then also Laura Ingraham, have both paid quite a bit of attention to the story, brought on certain figures from the Netherlands to kind of pitch their version of events. And again, to really kind of tell this story of a globalist elite using climate change as a smokescreen in order to kind of um, create a new world order, I think is really kind of the meat of that conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I first saw this. I mean, you definitely saw it before me, but I feel like I first sort of started seeing these, far right social media personalities talking about this. I think I'm pretty sure it was on Gab. And when I read it there, I was like, oh, well, of course, this is going to be some globalist conspiracy theory. I'm sure they're bringing in like the World Economic Forum into this, and I think the Great Reset. I'm sure is part of this. Did they sort of tie from what you've seen? Does that sound accurate? Did all these things sort of tie into this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the way that it is kind of explained on Tucker Carlson's show, for example, is that there is that again using climate change, they are kind of imposing these restrictions on hardworking, kind of humble farmers in order to starve the population, and in so doing, kind of make people submissive. And so that goes into these kind of conspiracies of a great reset, as you say. And then the other kind of major myth that is being pushed there, and then was also articulated on Tucker Carlson's show, was that these properties, not to go too in the weeds, but properties that are near these protected nature reserves in the east of the country are kind of the ones that are most affected. And so there was a conspiracy theory going around, again, and stated on Fox News, that said that rather than taking those properties in order to protect them and kind of fold them into this protected nature area, that actually they were going to be used to house asylum seekers, immigrants, refugees. And so that is great replacement theory, kind of straightforwardly. This idea that multi-generational white Dutch farmers are being removed from their land in order to replace them with, in the Netherlands, when they say refugees and immigrants, that's usually North African and Syrian migrants. So that's great replacement theory.
Right. I actually saw like I read your piece and I know that you brought up a great replacement. I saw like them tie in like the COVID Great Reset stuff too. They're really bringing in all of those like globalist theories here. Like to do my best, Alex Jones. I mean, this is just right in that wheelhouse of, you have the idea that there are these very powerful people who are working together to sort of take away everything you own and change the order of how things work. And they were sort of pushed into doing this by the opportunity, quote unquote, that COVID gave them. And then you have the Great Replacement, which is the really a white supremacist conspiracy theory that people from developing countries are being brought in by left-wing parties and wherever you're hearing this conspiracy theory they come from. Like here in the U.S., you'll hear Tucker Carlson bring it up as Democrats bringing in people from developing countries to replace white people. It's amazing to see, and not all that surprising, but still it's always interesting to see, at least for me, how they sort of combine and sort of thread the needle between these varying things.
Yeah, to your earlier point about sort of why is this protest in this small country gaining so much attention, I think that's exactly why, is that it really kind of, it has all these different components that allow a person who is conspiratorially minded to kind of weave in whichever thread. So it really kind of can absorb a lot of these different threads. I think the agricultural aspect is really interesting and important. This idea that the global elite is starving the populace. That conspiracy has been, ascendant on right-wing social media for several months now, even before these protests began. You may have remembered there were some food processing plant explosions here in the United States, and then I think a couple overseas as well. And so that has been talked about for several months as evidence that, again, George Soros, Bill Gates, kind of like pick your player, are behind these attempts to harm the global food supply. And it is coming at a time of global food chain disruptions, thanks to COVID and other issues. And so all of that kind of feeds into this idea that that there is some sort of conspiracy to starve us all, to make us weaker and malnourished, in order to um, for nefarious ends, let's say.
Right, right. Oh, I'm looking. You did mention this was a right wing Dutch media figure, Eva. Oh my God, I'm gonna attempt. Here we go. You correct me, please. Vlaardingerbroek. I'm sorry.
Yeah, close.
Okay, uh, I'll take it. Uh, it seems like they mentioned too. She said that she mentioned the Great Reset earlier. The Great Replacement theory is mentioned in your piece. It really is like they just. It's a global thing we're seeing, and that's that's what you mentioned in your piece, right? In the title, it's the global right. Um, do you think that this for this particular sort of protest, the Dutch farmers' protest, do you think the this was already baked in when this came and hit the U.S., or do you think someone, oh, I mean, you probably know actually from like the timeline of all this, or did someone like Tucker Carlson and other U.S. right wing figures sort of help form the narrative for these right wing Dutch figures?
No, I think that this narrative has really been present for long enough. This is maybe the latest version of it. But again, the Gilets Jaunes movement and the Canadian convoy movement and elements of anti-vaccine, anti-mask, anti-mandate protests over the last 2 years, I think often take on these various valences. And so I don't think that an American right-wing media figure needed to invent whole cloth these explanations. I think some of it was going on already in the Netherlands, in Dutch media, and then being picked up elsewhere. But I think it can sort of be translated and kind of transmuted perhaps through these different movements each time. And so I don't think that it's necessarily a case of us exporting these beliefs in that direction this time. I think that there's really been this kind of soup of these ideas that have particularly taken off in the last 2 years, throughout COVID, has really given a lot of oxygen and sort of time and energy for people to devote to kind of conspiracy theorizing with one another. And so then when these kind of huge events pop off, it just gives an opportunity for people to kind of see it as either additional evidence of the theory that they've been developing, or kind of yet another sign of again, sort of pick your flavor of conspiracy theory and how that's playing out in this collapsing world that we are living in.
Right, right. I always think that dynamic is interesting, so I had to ask because like a couple months ago I had on a Russia based writer to talk about what was going on with how Russia was moving further right with in the war in Ukraine, and he had basically told me that like the talking points over there on the right are all of a sudden like woke mob family values, and he was like this was never a thing before they started hearing this from US right-wing media. So I just had to ask to see if it was the same sort of similar dynamic. um
Yeah, I think that there's like there is that interplay, but I guess I would just want to be careful about, having that US centered paradigm. Like we like to think that this kind of new wave of populism happened with Brexit and the election of Donald
right.
Trump. And I wrote a piece about the election of Bong Bong Marcos a couple of months ago now, I guess. And I believe her name was Maria Ressa, the editor in chief of Rappler. She makes the point that this is happening in the Philippines 2 years before it was happening in the UK and the US. And so she would argue that the Philippines kind of helped write the playbook that Boris Johnson and Donald Trump helped follow So I guess I would just, be cautious about having that U.S. centered perspective that once it reached our shores and our airwaves, that we invented it.
Right, right. I mean, I remember, geez, got to be over a decade now. I mean, one of the major figures, and you could tell me if he still is. I haven't heard his name prominently in a little while, but maybe he's still, I'm gonna mess up his name. It's one of those names you always read but never really heard said. Geert Wilders. I mean,
Here
I
to
would hear.
builders.
Thank you. Yeah, I would hear. I would constantly read about him, covering, just following the right wing, and his name would constantly come up as like this huge figure over there on the right in the Netherlands. His bread and butter that he was like known for was this like Islamophobia, and I believe there was attacks related to things he had said. So definitely, you're absolutely right that this is we can't think that everything comes from here. Is he still active in the Netherlands?
He is, and as it's been explained to me by folks who understand those politics quite deeply, he would now be considered something like center right. Like that's sort of how far right the right wing has gone. So he certainly, I think, laid the groundwork for this kind of ascendant populist movement. But he would no longer. He's sort of no longer the standard bearer of the right wing in the Netherlands.
Oh my God! All right, wow. All right. So what? So how? What is the far right in the Netherlands? Sort of. Uh, what are their issue? What are they rallying around now? Is there like a Trump-like figure? Is that how they're going further right, or is the whole party just like here? It's whole party moving further into like straight up, anti-democracy, fascistic policies where they want to, they don't uphold elections results and things like that. Like, what's going on over there that they're even further right than a guy who I looked at as the one of the faces of like the early 2010s, Islamophobia that was running rampant.
So I'm not an expert in Dutch politics,
Right.
but one of the, I think, key differences there, and this is true of many Western European nations, is that it's a parliamentary system. And so it's, I think, important to pay attention when, parties shift within parliament. And so there are now these kind of populist figures who hold seats in parliament, and that's new. But the leading party, the ruling governing party, is sort of a center left party. As you mentioned, they are kind of affiliated with World Economic Forum, so that kind of same vein of sort of neoliberal left of center parties that you see in France and elsewhere. So I believe what's going on there is a little similar to here, although not quite as dramatic as here, where there is kind of increasing polarization between those wings. And certainly populism is ascendant worldwide and was really kind of exacerbated by the pandemic. A lot of people who are perhaps flirting with populism have gone much more directly that route, thanks to kind of the turmoil of the last couple of years. And so that's true in the Netherlands. It's true across Western Europe, and obviously it's true here as well.
Right. So where's the let me I was about to get to where it's going, but we didn't really talk about so much about Tucker Carlson. So what did Tucker Carlson sort of focus on in his coverage? Like what did he think was the most I guess the best part, the most meatiest part of the bone to throw at his audience?
Definitely, I think the climate change aspect is an important part of how he frames what's happening. The idea of using climate change as kind of a ruse in order to um, impose, whatever sort of agenda that the global elites might have. Another aspect that he focused on was, the fact that this could happen here in the United States. And there was actually just a piece published in the Federalist a couple of days ago that said much the same thing. And I think that the author then appeared on Tucker Carlson's program. So now several weeks after they initially drew attention to this issue, to make that same argument, to say that this is what is coming to the United States, if we're sort of not careful, if we're not paying attention to how these issues affect us. And so that, I think, was sort of the focus that Tucker Carlson wanted to point to. And then another kind of interesting component, and I don't get at this in the article, but he talked a lot about how the particular brand of protest that's going on in the Netherlands kind of speaks to this um, manliness, right, on the part of the Dutch citizen that is not present here in the United States. And I think that's also an important kind of component is, again, when we talk about being able to bring in all of these different ideas and ideologies and attach it to this movement, sort of bringing in sort of our gender-based culture wars, if you want to put it like that. One could do that, and Tucker Carlson did that.
Right. I mean, that also plays in. I mean, the reason he made this, I was gonna say, this also plays in perfectly with his recent movie that he made that he was promoting. But I mean, the reason he made that film was for that reason, to push that sort of masculinity and the gender identity. I'm not going to call it debate, frame it like them, but their discourse over that. They're really good at threading that needle and tying everything together. So as long as you bring up one thing, everything else comes up with it. So it sort of bombards the viewer with all these issues, and it sort of makes them, I think it does a lot of things. One, they can't think of any of these issues individualistically, because by the time they start trying to parse what's going on with one, they're already being hit with another. And then there's just sort of this, I guess, fear-based factor here where it's like, oh, all these things happening at once. Oh, I can't really, this is horrible. What's going on here? I'm looking at the Federalist here, and it's amazing to see these headlines. I mean, early July, Dutch government launches Canadian-style crackdown on farmers' protests. I mean, there you go. They themselves trying to tie it directly with with what the Canadian government tried to deal with the trucker convoy. And then a week later, American press is ignoring the Dutch farmer protest because they hurt its climate fear-mongering campaign. I mean, it's a 1-2 punch there with the media, attack the media because they're ignoring this. So obviously they don't read the grid. And then the climate issue, and then the piece you were just talking about that just came out not even a week ago. Pay attention to the Dutch farmer protests because America is next. I mean, it's exactly what you framed that, how they framed it perfectly. That's exactly what they said.
Yeah, and I think, again, when you ask why this issue got global attention in a way that one might not expect for a protest about nitrogen emission policy in the Netherlands, that's why, right? That it is a way, it evokes fear for people who think in these sort of conspiratorial ways. It evokes fear that those forces are getting closer to home.
Right, right. Just two more quick questions. One is that has any of the figures from the Canadian trucker convoy, that right wing movement that happened earlier this year against the vaccine mandates, even though the vast majority of truckers in Canada already got vaccinated by the time this movement even started. And then following the U.S. attempt, the U.S. right wing attempt to create their own trucker convoy on the D.C. Beltway, which sort of petered out and never really took off. But there still was a real, movement of people, not insignificant numbers, who tried to make it happen. Has there been any attempt from within those circles directly, not just like the right wing figures like Tucker Carlson that propped it up, like those movement figures directly? Has there been any attempt from them to try to use the Dutch farmer protests to, buoy their own movement, or to just try to lend their support to the Dutch farmers? Or to your knowledge, have any of them even gone over to there, perhaps?
So not to my knowledge in terms of the leadership of movements interacting with one another. Some of the kind of citizen journalists who made names for themselves during the Canadian convoy movement, they have gone to the Netherlands, and so they've been kind of covering things from the ground. And so again, when we talk about kind of the media attention placed on this, I think it offers kind of an opportunity, if you're trying to make your name in right wing media or as kind of a social media presence or right wing influencer. This is kind of the latest opportunity. I think that there is also kind of these interesting kind of visual mirrors between the various protests. So you see there was this protest in Amsterdam last weekend, and you saw people waving Canadian flags. In the ongoing kind of protests in Canada, people have been waving Dutch flags, or bringing out symbols of the tractor. And so they are clearly sort of in solidarity with one another. Interestingly, when I wrote about the Canadian convoy in February, I noted, and I spoke with kind of an expert over there who noted all of these American right wing symbols that were in Canada. So there were Confederate flags, there were American militia flags, sort of things that you would not necessarily expect to see in Ontario. And likewise, at this protest in Amsterdam, I saw more than one, at least a handful of "Don't Tread on Me" flags. And so I think it's sort of interesting, when we talk about the interplay between all of these various movements, that even if they're not directly communicating with one another, that there is this kind of shared language, shared symbology. And for so much of it that kind of foments online, some of it might be almost based in meme culture, kind of this shared language that develops in various sort of forums and social media channels.
Right. The meme war is global, right? Yeah. So where do you where are the Dutch farmer protests now? Like what is the latest on what's happening over there? You had mentioned support had dwindled. Are the protests themselves dwindling, or are they still going? And do they have sort of an end game in terms of like what they view as a goal?
So they are ongoing. They are receiving a little bit less attention these days as it's kind of drawn on, I think, both for the reason that anything that goes on for a while, it sort of stops being as much of a news event. And then also, as I mentioned, kind of flippantly, but this is true, August in Europe is vacation time. And so a lot of media figures are on vacation. The prime minister is on vacation right now. So he like tweeted something about the movement, but he is not in the country. I don't think. I think he's vacationing elsewhere. And so that in and of itself just kind of moves the spotlight because people are resting. And so it's sort of, I'm curious what it will look like at the end of August, if that losing some of that attention will also kind of remove some of the fuel from the movement. But, notably, like there are these kind of solidarity movements elsewhere in Europe. I've seen images from Switzerland and from Italy and France, I believe, and Belgium. And so, again, there is this kind of solidarity among people sort of shared political interests. And so I'd be curious kind of, even regardless of what happens with this movement, whether it lasts a long time or kind of peters out, I could see it kind of getting picked back up in different ways, in response to new governmental policies or new catastrophes. There's clearly kind of enough energy and ire within different sort of groups over there, over here, that this is, I don't think, the last kind of large scale online fueled right wing protests we're going to see for a while.
Right, right. Really quick, I know I'm looking at that Federalist headline, and I just realized what did the government do to crack down on it? And I'm assuming that helped, I guess, sort of, help it tamper down, the protests. But what was done to sort of, I guess, stop, I guess, some of the more extreme stuff they were doing?
So there were clashes with police in different towns. Actually, very recently, either today, yesterday, depending on time zones, there was a clash in a small town out east. And so there's been, and that's again kind of unusual in the Netherlands in a way that it's maybe less unusual here in the United States. There was one instance, and this also actually got picked up on Tucker Carlson show, where a young man, I want to say he was like 16, was driving a tractor at one of these protests, and a police officer shot at his tractor. And there was video of this. And that got, a huge amount of attention. And it's in the Netherlands, police discharge their weapons like a dozen times a year total for all police in the country. So it's very, very unusual for a police officer to fire their gun, much less to fire at a person. And so that got a huge amount of attention that this cop shot at a kid, essentially. He faced repercussions. I believe he and his family had to relocate from their house for a little bit. He either went on paid leave or unpaid leave. I don't remember the exact sort of consequences that police officer faced, but that was a really kind of big deal because, again, that level of kind of police crackdown is much more unusual in the Netherlands than in the United States.
Right, right. This was really great. Thank you so much, first of all, for coming on the show. And second of all, I was looking into this issue, and literally it's like a sea of right-wing media covering it. And then this article in Grid News from you. So thank you so much for coming on. Folks, Anya van Wagtendonk, why don't you tell people where they can find you online? And feel free to drop any other, project you're working on, upcoming article, whatever. The floor is yours. Feel free to promote whatever you'd like.
Sure, yeah. So I cover myth and disinformation at Grid News. We are a news startup. We launched in January, and we cover the news from a variety of different angles to kind of bring the context that is not always present. I am always interested in sort of unusual approaches to covering myth and disinformation. So if people have tips, story ideas, they can always reach out. We are at grid.news, and then I'm on Twitter at twice Anya.
Can I ask you what is twice Anya? What is the meaning?
I really wish I had a less embarrassing explanation. It has to do with a Last FM profile that I had in college. And I don't know why I stuck with that username. It's because I had one username for Last FM in high school, and then I wanted a new one to track my music taste in college. And then somehow that name has followed me around. So now everyone knows about that, and you can go see how I listened to a lot of Rilo Kiley when I was 18.
There we go. Good music taste, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Anya, thanks for joining me tonight. Would love to have you back again in the future.
Yeah, this was my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Take care. Have a great night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's now go to the second half of the show where I will open up those phone lines. We got lots and lots and lots to talk about. But not only lots to talk about in the second half, I still have a few things to mention here, such as it's August 2nd. The live stream is August 2nd. The podcast listeners will hear this a little bit later, but it's August 2nd. It's the first show of the month. And so here I am to tell you all that it's that time of the month again, where Patreon charges everyone at the beginning of the month. And then, of course, due to cards expiring, people having to cancel, which actually only, we lost a number of patrons this month, but only one person had to cancel. Everything else is due to card expirations and things like that. Hopefully those people rejoin when they get their card corrected and everything. But that's when I come to you folks who can afford to subscribe to the Patreon and for whatever reason have not yet done so. We're down about 12 people, 13 people from where we were. And we were so close to 400. We were like something like 24, 23 people away from 400 patrons. So patreon.com/Matt Binder to support this show. Literally, your support makes this show possible, makes my other show, Scam Economy, possible, makes all the work I do possible. And very soon, we will be hitting the short-term patron goal of 500 patrons, which will then supply me with the funds needed to bring people on board, to create more content, disseminate the content we're already creating in new ways to a larger swath of audience or potential audience. So if you can afford to do so, patreon.com/mattbinder. Last week on Scam Economy, if you just listen to Doomed, you don't know about this. If you don't listen to Scam Economy, you don't know about this. So last week, Scam Economy, my show that critiques cryptocurrency and the whole Web3 space, I was researching an episode. It's the episode that's up now, the latest episode that's up now on Helium. It's a Web3 wireless network company. Basically, I was doing the research for that episode, came across something super different and interesting that I never saw anyone else cover about this company. I did more work and research into it, and I was able to put together a piece that was published in Mashable that broke news about how this company was misrepresenting. Some people would say they were outright lying about their major corporate partnerships with other major companies like the rideshare company Lime and Salesforce. This is a result of my reporting. A lot of people picked up this story, and eventually the company Helium came out and took down the logos of those companies that they were saying were their customers when they were not. And it's been not a, they've been doing some, PR work, I guess you can say, after the piece. The CEO went out to try to, with a statement to try to explain everything. I think it's important, and I'll explain this on Scam Economy too, but the reason this was important was because, the response in the official Helium subreddit absolutely, the response to my article in the Helium subreddit absolutely, sort of cemented what I thought, and that is because of those major companies that they were saying they were working with, regular people bought in to the Helium network. In order for them to make money, basically, in order for the Helium network to run, really quick, I have to give a summary. In order for the Helium network to work, regular people have to buy these hotspot devices so that individuals who want to use the network can connect from anywhere. Now, when people connect from anywhere, they would ping these hotspot boxes, which would allow them to connect, and in turn, the Helium network would reward the hotspot box owners with cryptocurrency. To do that, you would need to buy a hotspot box device, which cost as much as $500, and some people would buy multiple devices. So at least $500 for some people. Now, again, for them to earn cryptocurrency, people have to be using the network. According to Helium, companies like Lime and Salesforce were using the network. They, in fact, were not. So people in that subreddit were very upset that they spent all this money on these hotspot devices. And it turns out they were not making very much money. In fact, they will probably never make their money back even on the money they spent on those hotspot devices. And they found out the reasoning behind that from my piece. And according to some of those people in that subreddit, they were getting out of it because they were very, they lost money. They were going to try to sell their hotspot device on eBay if they could even do that. So, I mean, long story short, would have never happened if I wasn't looking into the company for a Scam Economy episode, and I would have never been looking into into Helium for a Scam Economy episode if it wasn't for my viewers and listeners and, of course, my patrons. So again, thank you to all of you for helping support my work. Patreon.com/MattBinder if you can afford to become a paying subscriber and supporter. And the people who do that and have subscribed over the past week, let me specifically thank them. Give me 1 second to pull their names up. When was the last episode of Doomed? I can't even remember. Let me see. Okay. So, where did they... Okay, here we go. Of course, Patreon also redesigned on my side, the creator end of the back end. So I had to pull up this new thing. Okay, so thank you to the people who subscribed to the Patreon over the past week. Val V, LH, George C, Inertia Status, Fooditron, or Fooditron, PDA, and Brittany A. Thank you so much for your support. Literally cannot do this without you. YouTube.com/MattBinder to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free. You could drop a super chat, and I'll read the super chats in the second half of the show. That's a one-off payment, and your comment's highlighted, and I 100% read your comment no matter what in the second half of the show. You can also drop a super thanks on the replay of this live stream. It's the equivalent of a super chat, but it's just the replay version. Because there's not a live chat, there's a comments section. Also, twitch.tv/MattBinder. Follow that channel. Following the channel is for free. You could also become a paying subscriber on Twitch if you prefer to join there. But here's the cool thing about Twitch. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, Amazon gives you a free Twitch Prime subscription every month along with your Amazon Prime subscription. What is that? It's basically free money that Amazon gives your favorite creator that doesn't cost you anything extra. If you don't use it, you're essentially letting Amazon keep extra money that you pay them for Prime. Why do that? Give that to your favorite creator. It's like you get to be Robin Hood. You're taking from Amazon and giving to your favorite creator. I'm saying this because I hope you'll give it to me. But even if you choose not to, please don't let it go to waste. Don't let Amazon keep this freebie they give you. Make them pay your favorite creator. And you have to do this manually each month. For example, if you go to Amazon Prime right now and go to twitch.tv right now and you connect your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and you give your Twitch Prime subscription to me this month, when that expires next month, that's it. It doesn't automatically renew. You have to manually subscribe to me again or move your subscription to somebody else. Whatever you choose to do, just make sure you do it. Don't let Amazon keep that extra amount. They're basically, I'm not even doing anything like black hat or shady. They literally give this as a freebie to you. They pay your favorite creator from your Amazon Prime subscription, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Just do it. If you're not, it's ridiculous. Even if you don't give it to me, give it to someone else. Give it to, I don't know who. Give it to anyone. So go do that. Follow me on Twitter @MattBinder. Oh, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for this show or Scam Economy. If you've already done it for this show, do it for Scam Economy. If you've already done it for Scam Economy, do it for this show. In fact, no one has left a written review on Apple Podcasts for this show since I went on Tim Pool's show in May. It's been a while since someone left a written review. If you haven't done it, now would be a great time so people know that people watch this show. I mean, you do. I see it. We get tons of calls every week. So leave an Apple Podcast review so people know that the show is active and has an active audience. Thank you to Stephen P. for joining the Patreon right now. Patreon.com/MattBinder. Thanks so much. Over on Twitch, we got a bunch of subscriptions. Right now, 4RDO subscribe at Prime. Tokyo Hans gave out a community gift sub. Valinova gave out 5 community gift subs. Tokyo Hans resubscribed with Prime. He's been a subscriber for 3 months. Scott Harris, 1014, subscribed with Prime. The Real KG subscribed with Prime. Omark555 subscribed with Prime. Joe Colville subscribed with Prime. Philbo Schwagins resubscribed with Prime. 4-month subscriber to this channel. Thank you so much. Robot Monkey Cat resubscribed with a tier 1 subscriber for 9 months. There you go, folks. Super simple to do. People are doing it right now. Patreon.com, twitch.tv/MattBinder. there will not be a doomed, if you're watching the live stream, a doomed live stream next Tuesday. I am going on a short week-long break with family next week. What will be done though, there will be an upload of a podcast. It's an episode that was already uploaded to this channel, to the YouTube channel, and already uploaded to Scam Economy. That really was like a crossover episode, but I never uploaded it to the Doomed feed. Believe it or not, there are people who just listen to Doomed, and there are people who just listen to Scam Economy. So it'll be new content for a swath of people who listen to Doomed. It is the episode where I spoke to members over at Logically who had a great report about a QAnon cryptocurrency scam. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah. I will probably be doing an extra episode anyway. In fact, I might hold that. I just said I was going to give it to you next week. I will be taking off another week at the end of August. I haven't taken off in years, so I needed it, and family were doing things. You guys will actually, I'll probably be doubling up on live streams. So in effect, you'll really be only missing like one show instead of the four of Doomed and Scam Economy. I'll probably also be doing a live stream, probably on what's going on with the Alex Jones trial, depending on when that ends and closes up. I'm trying to. They chose a really inconvenient time for me to do all this. But I'll definitely do an episode on it. The question is, will I be able to do an episode on it, like on Friday or Saturday, or will I have to wait till, that Sunday or Monday when I'm back, the following weekend, not this weekend, the following weekend. I will keep you guys updated and posted. The best way to follow what's going on is probably on Twitter at Matt Binder, but I will definitely try to also post it on the Patreon, and I'll post it publicly on Patreon. So even if you're not a subscriber, you can follow along with the schedule for the show. But you still get all the content you're supposed to get. Just the scheduling will be off for the next few weeks. It won't always be on Tuesday for Doomed and Thursday for Scam Economy. Let's go to the second half of the show. Doomed live on Skype. Search Doomed live on Skype. I am opening up the Skype phones line right now. If you're watching the live stream, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can stick around. Nothing will change for you. I'm taking a 20-second break just to take a drink of soda. I'm parched. If you just listen to the freebie podcast feed, this is where I say to you, goodbye. And I will see you all next time on Doomed. We are back. Phone lines are open. Get your super chats in. Get your Twitch subscription or bit comments in. Sid Fishes with 200 bits over on Twitch. Hope all is well. Thank you, Sid Fishes. Everything is well. Also, thank you to usually people use their real names on Patreon, so I don't usually say people's full name, but this doesn't seem to be someone's actual real name, so I'll say it. Thank you to Richard Marxist for upping your Patreon pledge to $10. That's really helpful. Really appreciate it. You know, I don't like talking too much about this stuff, but you know, you're the patron, so I feel like you guys deserve to know like the insider, like the background stuff. It's like we're so close to hitting a point where I can bring people on board, not like full time. Like I'm not gonna have producers like Sam does working full time in the studio, but you know, bring in someone to help disseminate the content on various channels. You know, being able to edit like a TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts version of this stuff. Even just clip the shows. Perhaps having someone like I don't know what else. Being able to help get guests and reach out to other YouTubers and podcasters to do like partnered streams or something. Like I do with people I just know, like the Surfs. Also, it would help to have someone who, like, when we have a really interesting show that helps break things down, to like, help disseminate it to get some sort of like press for it or help get me on other podcasts. I just don't have the time to do all that with everything I do, just producing this show and then my full-time job, just doing news. I mean, phone lines. So, we're so close to it, honestly. So I really appreciate all you guys for sticking with the Patreon and supporting the show. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello? I can hear you now, it seems like. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Richard Marxist.
Oh, hey, Richard Marxist. Where are you calling from, if you want to share? You don't have to.
Michigan, buddy.
Michigan. Hey, so what would you like to talk about?
Here, let me try to get my volume up.
Sure. You sound good on my end, just to let you know, though. So you don't have to worry about that, unless you can't hear me. Okay, cool.
There we go. No, we're good. I got a thunderstorm going on in the background here. It's kind of getting a little crazy.
All right. I hear you. You're good on my end, though, to let you know that.
Okay. There we go. All right, no, just wanted to say thanks for all the great content. It's worth re-upping on the Patreon, man. No big deal.
I really appreciate it. Seriously, it's it means a lot.
But I also had a story.
I also want to say, like, I don't like patrons, even if you just want to give even if you want to give $1 or $5 or whatever. Suggested is $5, but whatever you want to give, that alone, like, I appreciate that so much. I never ask people to up their membership. It's always a call for people who aren't doing it already. So like for you to up it, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that. But go ahead. What would you want to talk about?
Yeah, no problem. And I would encourage people to give you just the buck if they can.
Thank you.
Out of Michigan, though, the first district congressional race for the last 3 years in the row. I know it's been a bigger point talked about on some of the stuff on Majority Report with you guys, the Michigan races, and that one's always kind of overlooked. I've tried to get in on Majority Report a couple times, but it's tough to get on the phone line. So I figured maybe I could cross play a little bit.
Right, and also let me tell you, if you want to call in on Thursday, when I'm on,
okay.
Are you on Twitter?
I am not. That's one of the things, but I could start one.
Why don't you email me or make a Twitter and DM me, contact me in some way on Thursday, if you're gonna call in, and let me know your area. Let me know your area code, and I will make sure that when we get to the phone lines, we take your call. But let's talk about it now too.
Yeah. So the last 2 election cycles, we've had General Jack Bergman from Louisiana as our congressman in Michigan. I mean, kind of weird, but somehow he keeps winning. Somehow he keeps getting money. He was also part of the January 6th insurrection. He was part of the very first case of voter fraud that was brought up in Antrim County, which is northern lower Michigan. And he directed the team which came into town and did the first audits on Dominion voting machines, and been in direct contact with other generals that are not retired. And it just seems like that story has not ever been picked up on.
Wow. What? I mean, I guess because Michigan wasn't one of those states that, I guess Trump was really focused on when he was. I mean, it's still crazy that people should. This is something people should absolutely be paying attention to. But I guess
There was one
most
newspaper called the Record Eagle downstate, which broke the story. And it was Allied Security Operations Group, I believe, ASOG, out of Arizona. The ones that ran the audits in Arizona actually started in Lower Michigan. And this was kind of like their test case. And General Jack Bergman was in complete communication and direction of this team. And I can't think of his name right now, but the founder of ASOG was also a general in the U.S. military. So I mean, it's just some weird coincidences there that all these generals were involved with the beginnings of the audits, and no one's really ever called them out on it.
Hold on, I'm trying to look that up. Founder. Okay, it is. Is it Russell Ramsland Jr.? Is that who you're thinking of? I think he might be the person.
Yes, it could be. I can't remember the name.
Or maybe
off the top
not. Hold on, I'm looking myself.
Once.
All right, I'm looking this up. I'm gonna get on top of this and follow it and try to have some. What was where did you see? Who broke the story again? What was the outlet in Michigan?
The Record Eagle. And there's actually a PBS documentary on it called it's something about voter fraud. It was PBS, Frontline, and ProPublica did a documentary together on it.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can get on this and help cover this.
I'm sorry, articulating it better. I wasn't expecting to make a call tonight.
No, I appreciate you just even bringing it up. I mean, I'm not expecting anyone
right in front of me.
I'm not expecting any caller to call in and have an episode of the show impromptu. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you just calling in to put this on my radar. My assumption is that obviously it's totally worthy of, and people should be covering this. And good job to the Record Eagle for doing so. My assumption is it's Trump focused on and is still focused on like Georgia and Arizona. So probably,
exactly.
Michigan fell the wayside.
It was just weird that was the first county to have somebody come forward and say that they felt like there was election fraud because there was too many votes for Biden. And what happened was there actually was an error that was done in Antrim County on the votes, but it wasn't fraud. It was a unintentional error. They found it. They fixed it. The votes got put back to Trump like they should have been. And it was still used as cause to start this wildfire of election fraud. Right. And Bergman has never come forward and denounced like anything that's happened or said, "Oh, we made a mistake saying it was fraud."
Right. I mean, to me, Michigan was I know it wasn't like the decider in 2016. But for me, exactly. Michigan was like seeing Michigan go red was like the biggest me slap in the face for Democrats.
And I think that was a testing ground for them to see like what the constituents' reactions would be,
right?
If they decided to come and just schedule these people to come into this Chamber of Commerce who nobody knows.
I remember
under the direction of a congressman.
Yes, right. I mean, I remember in 2016, Trump ended his campaign in Michigan. Like that was his last campaign stop the night before Election Day. And I remember thinking, they wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a reason. Like Trump is he does things for all sorts of reasons that make no sense. But his campaign, which obviously was not run directly by Trump, but was run by people who had a better idea of what they were doing, at least the 2016 campaign, sent him there because they had strong internal polling that showed we can pull this off. And when I saw them in Michigan the night before, I remember saying to my editor at the place I was working at the time, I was like, because where I was at the time, the Chapo Trap House guys were doing the Carl Diggler character for Cafe. I don't know if
Okay.
you know any of that, what I'm talking about. But they made the prediction of Hillary winning. And I said to my editor, because I got to see that before it was published, because I worked there. I was like, "Listen, I'm not going to pretend to know if Hillary or Trump is going to win." But they had the state by state breakdown of who's going to win, and I said, "I don't think Hillary's going to win Michigan," and they have it for Hillary. And again, I don't know if Trump's going to win, but I'm starting to get really worried that he
Well,
could,
a lot of those
based on
people
that
are
alone.
that probably have never been north of like Lansing in Michigan.
Yeah, I mean,
It's literally one of the last great white ethno states in the United States.
right, but I still think Michigan was the biggest, was the one that should have never went in 2016 that Dems completely screwed up on. Like it was the one where if they had just got people out, they wouldn't have gone right. It would have been
Exactly.
blue. Yeah, it wasn't like some of the other states where like, Trump was just building this constituency. There's enough blue in Michigan.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I always go off on tangents, and I just we were talking about why I think it's a big deal what Republicans are trying to do over there. So it seemed like that. My reminiscing on 2016 fit. But thanks for the call.
There's many things that don't get done keeping someone like Jack Bergman in office in the first district, because it's by area, it's one of the largest districts east of the Mississippi. And like I said, it's one of the last bastions of white supremacy and racism other than like the deep South that you're going to find in the northern parts. And it's just keeping someone like him in office only exacerbates it.
Right.
So it's a race that needs to be looked at.
Absolutely. I will. When is his race? By the way. Or did it
that'll be in
happen?
November. No,
Okay,
the primary today, but I'm pretty sure he was uncontested in the Republican primary, and his opposition was actually the guy who came in to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and pretty much took over all the COVID stuff for the health department. He took over the whole county health department and turned everything around for COVID, and he's running against Bergman.
Right. All right. I'm gonna have to. We have some time, I guess, till November, but it's definitely something I want to put. I'm like writing it down here, to get somebody on from there who's been following. I'm assuming probably someone from the Record Eagle might be best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you calling
Yes,
in. Really.
there is a documentary with some names for people who actually
Oh yeah.
do the
What is
investigating, and
do you recall the
it
name
was
of the
a
documentary?
PBS. It was a PBS frontline documentary about ASOG. I mean, if you just Google ASOG and Jack Bergman, it should come right up.
ASOG Jack Bergman PBS. Okay, yes I did. Okay. Cool. Perfect. I
All right, man. I
appreciate it.
appreciate all your work, man.
Have a great night.
You as well.
And again, thank you for all. I hung up on you already. Whoops. But again, thank you for all the support and your patronage. Andrew, thank you so much for joining the Patreon, for becoming a patron. Really appreciate it. And Don James subscribed that 1 month at tier 1 over on Twitch. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. Let us go back to. Feel free to call in. Let me read some super chats here. Let's go to Mi Fun. Yeah, I forgot how you told me to pronounce this. Mifune, Matt, you said last time music influenced your politics more than books. What music was the biggest influence? Mine was Dead Kennedys. I would say the first political punk band I really got into was probably anti-flag. And then they opened the door to so much. They weren't the first punk band I got into, but the first outright political punk band I got into. Whoever just called in, Skype missed you. I'm sorry. Call in after this next caller. And Skype just missed you too. Call right back in. I wish Skype had a system. That made a list of callers instead of made you guys call against each other. I will take whoever calls in right now. I just literally 3 people called in at once, and I missed you all, I guess because I was too busy reading that super chat. Renee sent a bunch of super chats. Is that far-right former NL candidate involved? I'm not sure what you're talking about, Renee. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Matt. It's Tab from Washington State.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's your... I couldn't hear you a little bit low. Who's this?
Sorry, hold on. Let me see if I can fix the volume. Is it better now?
Yes, much better.
All right, it's Tab from Washington.
Oh,
How are
hey,
you
Tab.
doing?
I'm doing good. Nice to hear you call in again. What would you like to talk about?
Well, first of all, I just want to say enjoy your vacation. Like, thank you for everything that you do. Like, you keep us sane, so like you need to maintain your sanity too. Do not ever feel bad about taking a vacation. So enjoy it.
I appreciate it. I think it's not even just like, I think it's a thing that even people who make non-political content, it's like a thing with like people who do online content where it's like they get people in like this a routine, and they worry about of like, oh, the show is on, for me personally, the show is on Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes I have to move it around, but people are used to 2 nights a week if they tune into the show. So I think all people who do stuff online worry about like taking that thing off. But like, I usually am really good at it. Like I have an ability to just power through. But I got to say, this month, I've been feeling it a little bit. And I think people have been seeing at the end of the live stream from some of the comments in the live chat, like, Matt, you okay? It looks like you're literally, we're watching you fade away live on stream.
You look tired, No, but for real though, like, even this is only my 3rd call in, and I mean, what you guys do, the way like streamers that, you come up with your content, you put out an episode like on your schedule Tuesday through and Thursday, like that's still super hard. Like, I mean, I have a hard time, like, even though I want to talk and, get your opinion on things, it's so hard to sometimes hit that button to actually make the call, It's nerve-wracking
Right.
talking in front of people and having like, what you say, like, just commented on it. I don't know. It's a weird thing to get used to, and I
Right.
applaud streamers for your ability to do that.
I hear what you say. I gotta say this, for anyone who feels that way, let me tell you, like, there's so much content out there and everything moves so fast that you literally cannot worry about like one show where you might have not been, like you said, like, oh, like 100 people did this, and oh no, you meant like 200 people did this, and you were off a little bit. You can't worry about that stuff or get nervous about. There's so like nothing will, none of that stuff will hold you back or be held against you. I mean, the best example of that is look at Tim Pool. Dude guessed that Trump would win a landslide in 2020, win 49 states, said it multiple times. That stuff is forever cemented on YouTube. It can't be, it's not removed. People can go back and listen to that whenever they want. And dude is racking in more money than ever before. Because at the end of the day, no one cares, unfortunately.
Yeah,
no one cares.
Tim Pool is a level of confidence that is just inspiring. But speaking about Tim Pool as well, so I've been wanting to call in since the last January 6th hearing, and I've specifically wanted to kind of talk about, and this has kind of been something I've noticed coming up here and sometimes on the Majority Report, but people speaking about this manosphere and this kind of well, not new at all, but this kind of issue of toxic masculinity making the rounds and using scams to like draw men in, or looking for a mentor. But anyway, it's just about it just made me think about also debate culture in general. And sorry, I just lost my train for a second.
No,
Well, I
don't-
wanted to talk about debate culture and kind of the way I felt like I saw more of it kind of played into this last January 6th hearing. Like a lot of the hearings have been, I was nervous that most of it from the beginning was all going to be political theater, and that the hearings weren't going to really be substantive, and that we weren't, like, I'm more hopeful that maybe things will come out of this versus like originally going into it. But I feel like most days have been substance, but I feel like the last one that they did, like their evening primetime event, was more kind of political theater, in the sense that we did get some substantive, or some more information, but I felt like for the most part it was done to make the Republicans look weak and humiliate them. And that is just a big part of debate in general. I watch a lot of debates. I like Sam's debates. I've watched yours. I really liked the Tim Pool debate is fantastic, but you had a really good one with Lance from the Surfs against Adam and Stitch. I don't know who they are really, but I was at work just listening, to the debate, and it just the way that you have to kind of make the opponent, like, it doesn't really matter about facts with them a lot of times. It's really all about just looking correct and like making their point with confidence, even though they're intentionally kind of misleading, and they know they're misleading people with what they're saying. But I feel like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place again. But going,
I don't know what you're saying. I can't guess what you're saying about so let me give you let me address the first thing you said, and then you could think about what you wanted to
thank
get
you,
into
please.
about the Adam and
Please
Adam
jump
and,
in.
So think about the Adam and Sitch thought while I address the first part. I think that is very interesting. That I already used this in the first half of the show, but it works here too. That needle you're threading between the latest January 6th hearing and like debate culture. I was saying during my live stream of that last January 6th debate, during that first hour, that wasn't the the best one so far, because they weren't really there wasn't any testimony that shed any brand new light on something like there were in the previous hearings. Like, we didn't have someone like Cassidy Hutchinson telling us about what Trump was doing behind the scenes in the lead up to January 6th, and then on January 6th when he's fighting, allegedly, I guess I should say, to get to the Capitol himself, when Secret Service wouldn't take him, like all that stuff. And then to me, the bombshell was that he didn't care about, metal detectors or anything, because he knew weapons were there, but they weren't there for him. Like, that was telling. Like, we didn't have anything like that at the previous hearing. But what they were doing in that first hour was sort of setting the ground for that second hour, which was much better. And that was exactly what you said. They were humiliating the Republican Party with like Trump's prep and his like blooper reel for his two speeches, which were already so bad, but like to see how he was even like trying to formulate those bad speeches made him look horrible. And the idea that even the day after January 6th, he still didn't want to bring up the election was over and done with, because in his mind, it still wasn't, even after all that. And then, of course, the highlight, based on anyone who watched my reaction, I guess, to this clip. But my favorite, Josh Hawley, Josh hauling ass out of the Capitol moments after his fist pump to that same crowd earlier in that day. I mean, they were really digging in on these guys, and I do
Yeah,
think it was right. I thought it was great, and you know what? Absolutely, they should be doing that. I think it could. I think it played really well with the people who watched. I mean, the hearings apparently have been playing really well with people of all political ideologies have been watching this. Like even Republicans who've been watching this. I've been here. You know, obviously the Republicans who this wouldn't play to are not watching it at all, and that's probably a good amount. But the ones who are wading into that water and daring to watch it, it's apparently. I mean, I don't think it's maybe not be it may not be giving them an epiphany, but they're saying like, oh, that looks bad for the Republicans.
It's
I mean,
planting seeds.
right,
Like it's
right,
getting a little bit. It's like really getting into the cracks, like, and kind of making their, let's say, wall fall apart.
right,
So like when it came to the blooper reel of Trump, I thought there was like maybe one good news substantive like bit from that where it did show that he did not want to come down hard on the rioters, and the rest of it really there was nothing to it. It's like, oh, he can't say the word Tuesday, oh, he's having a problem with this one, oh, like he can't read that. That's all just that's fluff, like that's just to laugh at. And Josh Hawley just hauling ass, just that again is just to make the Republicans, maybe some of their supporters, even see that kind of two-facedness of it, and that eats away at these people that are defending them. And the way they've spaced these hearings out is kind of, I think, like now that we're starting to see like they're getting more information coming in, like after the was it Cassidy Hutchinson, when they started now even actually getting more people to get their lawyers to reach out and give statements and change their original story, or add something that they forgot about. Like it's all just slowly chipping away at that. Like those calls that they're talking about that the Republicans are getting from Trump and his team, telling them, hey, Trump's thinking about you, you don't want to, I mean, it's all mob boss kind of lingo. Like he's just hey, the boss really, you're part of the family, we love you, don't give us up. And I mean, seeing it as now it's like all falling apart, like I don't know, I think that's actually a good strategy, and I think they should play on that more. And I think that comes kind of from debate culture. So I think as much as people kind of poo-poo on the debate realm, because it is kind of toxic at times, I think it is very strong, what would you say, like avenue to kind of reach people that I think the left doesn't play into enough.
Oh, absolutely. I'm one of those people. I don't listen. There's a lot of. I think debate culture has its problems for sure, but not all debates are part of debate culture. Like the idea of just of having a debate online is not necessarily part of that culture of just like random YouTubers or Twitch streamers debating about politics. They have no clue what they're talking about for like 6-7 hours nonstop on one stream, and then like just sounding absurd sometimes. That's part of it, but that's not what debates are online. I mean, I absolutely have always been a proponent for them. I've been a supporter of having debates online because I think that is important to do that. Now, I'm not saying you're going to turn, and I've discussed this about my specific strategy when I have debates with people with certain types of audiences. The goal is not always like, oh, I'm going to go on this show and debate this person, and all their listeners are going to turn around and support my arguments and ideologies, and all these right wingers are going to become leftists overnight after. No, it's not going to happen. I mean, maybe if you're on a certain show where you think there's an opening because that audience might be susceptible to it, sure, if you think you could pull some people off, of course. But if you're going on a right-wing show, my idea is, depending on, again, the specific audience is, one of my strategies is, I'm not going to win these people over, but I can make sure that they think this person or this Republican or this right-wing talking point is stupid as hell at the end of this. And maybe it will depress their support for it. Maybe it'll make them not want to turn out to vote for this Republican. Maybe they won't be so vocal about this issue anymore because they're not sure where they stand anymore on it. That's a win enough. I mean, that's part of it. And you brought that up in terms of like some of those Republicans who are watching the January 6th hearing might not be so rah-rah about the Republican Party after watching it. That's a win. You don't need them going out and voting for Dems. You could want them just not wanting to go out and vote for Trump, and there you go. That's enough.
I agree. I also like both styles of debate. Like I do enjoy yours. Like after watching both you and Vosh go on Tim Pool, like I see where both side, where both of your styles come from. Like I get your side wanting to be more like just factual because you do know like you're not going to win this. I mean, some people have called in and you did actually win some of them over, but I don't know. I don't like his as much. Like I get his when he's trying to bring them over in a kinder way by, kind of like agreeing with some of, or like letting go of what some of Tim Pool says to just move on to his main point that can content or counter what he's saying. And he does bring people over his way.
Oh,
And
no,
then
I think
like
Vosh did
yours.
I think Vosh did a really good job on Tim Pool's show. I just, I don't remember exactly what the issues were on Vosh's episode, but I'm willing to concede on areas where there is agreement. Like, Tim Pool brought up white privilege, and we're not on agreement there because he thinks that's just a stupid concept. But when I was on the show, I conceded that I actually think the term white privilege does a disservice to the actual thing, white privilege. Like, if we could find a better name for it, I'm not even saying it would feed into the right. I think this is a term that actually confuses people who are just not political at all, which is not good either. I think the word privilege has a connotation of someone who something good has happened to them or someone who's lucky. And that's not necessarily what white privilege is. I mean, white privilege is basically the idea, and it's absolutely correct, that whatever basically whatever a Caucasian person, a white person is going through, the odds that their race is a factor in it are slim to none. Whatever, they are not being turned away from a job because they're showing up and the interviewer goes, "Oh, this person's white, I'm not going to hire them." Whereas, Black Americans, Black people, Latino people, all sorts of marginalized groups and people of color probably have experienced that to some extent, some more than others, I'm sure, and in all sorts and facets of life. Not just, hiring, just walking down the street, and people not treating them differently based on their skin color. That's a very real thing. But I do think, the term white privilege isn't the probably the most helpful terminology to the actual description, to actually describe the thing that I think 100% exists and is completely relevant. And on the show there, I conceded on that fact. But also, he wanted me on that show to agree with their framing, the right-wing framing on abortion. And to that, I just, that would have done nobody any good. And I don't think Vosh would have, I hope he wouldn't. I don't think he would have conceded on that one either.
I don't think he would have, but I just know he doesn't like the abortion debate in general as well. But I did like the way you approach it. The thing with me is when I watch these debates, I'm always so frustrated by the way that someone like Tim Pool, or even, I don't know if it was Adam or Stitch or whoever it was on the other one, but a bunch of right-wingers do this in general, the way they will twist the definition of words to fit their arguments at the time. And it's like when you were debating Tim Pool, I can't remember exactly what was said, but there was a word, and he was just constantly just trying to parse meanings of just words to like make arguments out of nothing. But there was one that you said, you gave the definition, and they was like, oh no, but I mean it this way. Like, and it's like you catch, if you like watch enough of these debates, you'll hear them do that all the time, where they
I think it was.
change definitions
Was
of words.
Was it groomers? I think it was probably groomers. I feel like that might have been.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That's. Listen, I thought out of all the right wingers I spoke with, I thought Adam and Sitch were probably the most genuine, but they also were the ones most caught up in like that sort of terminology game, which is probably like the most disingenuous thing you can do, which was weird because on everything else I felt like they were actually being pretty honest and open with me, but then they would play those word games with the definitions. The groomers thing is like, come on, like there's a long standing definition of what the term groomers is, and yes, you can, I guess, claim that you can like use the word groomer to mean sort of anyone sort of being groomed into whatever. But historically, when you're talking about the issues they're talking about, it's about, sexual abuse. It's about pedophilia. It's about, and it's not just as would be, LGBTQ related, like they need to be. I mean, that's how it's used historically by the right to create this sort of anti-gay panic. But I mean, grooming is exactly what you would use to describe stories of, female high school teachers having sex or having a relationship with current or even former students. That's grooming. But of course, they would never use that terminology to describe that thing I just mentioned. In fact, there was a recent story in the New York Post of a woman doing just that. Some woman, she like had sex with like her son's friend or something, and there were a bunch of right wingers in the comments like high-fiving each other, how that kid's the man and how proud he must be or whatever. And people were looking into their social media history, and these were the same people who were calling LGBTQ people groomers for just like teaching gender identity in school. It's the most ridiculously hypocritical thing on the planet.
It's the South Park nice meme, where there's an episode of South Park where they basically bring up that double standard, and when the police are told about it, or anyone is told about, the female teacher grooming it was Ike, but grooming, Ike, that they would just respond being like, nice. Like,
I remember that episode, Ike. Right. It's funny because South Park did a lot of damage. South Park is like behind a lot of, and I feel like they know, and they feel really bad about it because they've tried. I feel like they've tried really hard over the years to try to sway the other way to fix the damage caused, and I appreciate that. I mean, it's a little too late. And this is coming from someone who has been a South Park fan over the years, because I actually don't think for a lot of things they meant it to happen. I think like they were going for an audience of someone like me who understood the jokes and what was meant to be something laughed at, but I think they didn't do it in the best way possible at all times, which made a lot of these edgelords think they were actually talking up some of these issues that they really weren't trying to talk up. But
I agree with that.
Right, but they did it nonetheless. But I appreciate. I appreciate them trying to fix it. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. Maybe they would come out and say that's not true. I'm reading too much into it, but my read of it is is exactly that.
All right, and I appreciate you letting me talk for as long as I have, and I don't want to take up your entire night. I want you to be able to get a couple other calls in. But I do have one other a recommendation, and then also a topic that I would like to call in another time to talk about at some point. For chat, I would like to, or even for you, I don't know if you've ever heard of the channel Innuendo Studios.
It sounds very familiar. Did they do those
They did the
those alt-right
alt-right
cartoons?
playbook.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. They did the alt-right playbook, and it is a fantastic series that I think, more people should watch, especially like if you're trying to have conversations with conservative family members or friends that you're trying to convince on things that, depending on the way they argue, it might be useful to kind of maybe take away a couple lessons from that series. It's a really good series, but they also dropped about 10 months ago, and I think way more people should watch this video, is the Gamergate case study they basically did that the alt-right playbook actually evolved from, which I know
really
a lot of
interesting.
people have. It's really good. It's 50 minutes, but it is worth a watch. It will leave you so angry, but I think it is a big look into how the alt-right kind of took over the gaming online community, or didn't take it over, but got heavily influenced into it. And you had people like Sargon of Akkad and trying to think of a few others like JonTron and a few other people that have, came out of that. And then it kind of revamped Steve Bannon and, how that all ended.
Steve Bannon realized
Steve Bannon
from
is
that,
brought up in it.
Right. Oh, you just remind me. I did. All right,
it got Breitbart. It brought Breitbart back kind of into the spotlight, and it's a really really good video if you want to understand what Gamergate actually was, and being a gamer at the time, just put I mean a female online in the Gamergate era, it was a hard thing. It's not easy, and at the time, even wanting to try and have this conversation with some of my friends, I wished I had understood like some of these elements better, but it's like it was very hard to kind of counteract the narrative that was going on with this idea that they were combating ethics in online or gaming journalism versus the fact that it's like, no, this is literally just a smear, like a harassment campaign against women. But yeah,
thank you for recommending that, because I want to watch it because it sounds interesting, but B, I'm going to watch it because people have been asking me to do a Gamergate video for a while. Because I think a lot of people, 2013, 2014 is a long time ago. And I really hasn't hit me until recently that there is a whole swath of people who have no idea what Gamergate is and is in this world of both progressive, leftist, and even right-wing and far-right politics and aren't familiar with it. And I have seen young leftists even bring it up as exactly what it was specifically weaponized as by the right, as ethics in games journalism. And I'm like, are you serious? This is coming from someone on the left? So I definitely need to watch this video, if nothing more than to give me a kick in the ass to actually also create a video on it myself. So thank you for recommending that.
Yes, no problem. And then I'll call in another time to discuss some games that I think do really good at social commentary and kind of like, in a sense, I wouldn't say the politics of it, but the way they kind of examine politics and just society and people in general. I don't know. I like games that tell a good story that actually kind of reflect well, or I mean not well, but in a sense well on, I guess, I don't know, I'm losing myself, but I'll get my thoughts together for that topic that I want to call in again about, but yeah. So
No, this was a great call. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that next call. Have a great night. Really appreciate it.
yes, you too.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye. Oh, I see who's calling in right now. I think this is the voice of the scam
Hello.
economy intro. Ladies and gentlemen, Spacco.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Hello?
me? Hello? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There we go. Spacco, how are you?
Great.
Great to hear your
So
voice.
excited. I was working on a piece that I wanted to talk to about tonight, and I was on the Majority Report Discord, and somebody said they really liked hearing me on Binder's show. I was like, yay!
There we go. That's perfect.
So I have something that a little bit about what the person earlier was talking about, which had to do with the deleted quote unquote missing texts. And I had sent out a kind of an IM to Sam, and I said, the January 6th committee telling the media the Secret Service texts are missing is a setup designed to catch those who tried and are trying to obstruct justice. It's working too. It exposed the Inspector General Kafari and congratulating the January 6th text. And so Sam said, "Oh, that's interesting. How do you know that? What's your substantiation of that?" And then I thought, well, I can go through all my, a long history of everything that I know about the technology behind it. But I thought, what the real issue here is, it's not necessarily technology. It is the politics of what's going on. And this is something that I was bringing up. When you read the excuses that they have for losing the text, do you buy any of those?
I mean, I don't. I mean, I believe the texts don't exist. That's one part of the truth, I think, based on the fact that I believe they deleted them, and I believe they're unable to get them. They're just gone forever.
Really?
I
think
do.
That?
I do. Well, that's because if it was anyone else, I wouldn't think that. But the Secret Service, I assume, would have their own system. Like those texts aren't sitting on some like AT&T server somewhere like they would for you and me, or like Verizon. I'm assuming they would have their own system of a system for storing texts. And if they actually wiped it, then they're wiped. I don't believe there's a reason on why they wiped it. I 100% believe there's a strong pro-Trump faction within the Secret Service, if not the whole Secret Service, honestly, that purposely did it to obstruct what really went on. But unless...
Did you see today, they had an announcement today that Trump's top people at the DOD, their texts are missing too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the truth about the texts being gone. The lie is why the texts are gone. But it's totally possible, I think, that the truth is these texts are really gone forever. It's the same as, like, shredding papers. These guys know they have access to these text messages and everywhere they're stored, and they're gone if they want them to be gone. I mean, if this was like text between Secret Service and their family, that's different because their family wouldn't be on these servers or whatever. But these would be intra-network texts, like Secret Service member to Secret Service member, or Secret Service member to another member of, DOJ or Trump's administration. it's totally plausible in my mind that these texts are really gone. The lie
Well,
is
here's
100% the reasoning.
Well, here's the thing is, and I in my piece, I'm tempted to go at this from the technology point of view and bring up all my bona fides and all these types of things. But I remember that a lot of times people do that because that's what they know. And in an area that you do know, you can say, well, this blah blah blah. Then it's areas that you don't know. You think, well, maybe that's viable. And so I've been following the whole story about them deleted for a long, missing for a long time. And I've been using this whole issue in some ways to bring up the fact that the Secret Service, particularly Tony Ornato, have been using their secrecy in order to hide the other crimes. And I had been trying very hard to get some of the various different committees, particularly the Department of Homeland Security's Oversight Committee, to look at the text between Mark Meadows, Tony Ornato, and the contract nurses who were testing people in Tulsa. And one of the reasons that they were the ones that I went to is because I knew that the Inspector General of the Secret Service was corrupt. They weren't going to look into stuff. And I knew that the state of Oklahoma weren't going to look into it because they were Republicans. But the reason that the Secret Service and Tony Ornato, his role is so critical is because he knew all the protocols. I also pointed out in one of my things is that he used to teach inspection evidence methods for the National Computer Forensic Institute, which is the group that teaches people how to delete texts. How to recover evidence. So you're right. He's thinking, yeah, they would know how to do it. He would have, means, motive, opportunity. But then I was having a conversation with some people and Glenn Kirshner, and I brought up some of these issues because I was trying to think it from the point of view of logically, politically, PR-wise, etc., which is he pointed out that the January 6th committee has been meeting with they've met over 1,000 people, many of them cooperating witnesses. Now, if you're a cooperating witness, say, for example, you are one of the people who is on Pence's Secret Service detail, you will know what the content is of those text messages, okay? Whether or not you have hard copies of them is a different story. The goal of the January 6th committee is to gather information. They're not necessarily looking to have it so that it can be used in a court of law. So I brought this up and I said, well, has this ever happened where, in a case, prosecutors, they get the information from some other source, but they can't use it in court because it's not admissible? I said, yeah. And he brought up that sometimes they let out information like, oh, these things are missing, is a way to set the people up, to catch them in the fact that they have somewhat obstructed justice and they think they got away with it. Okay. And so they'll lie and say, oh yeah, I deleted it. I don't know. I never said anything. And then they get them for, obstructing justice, whatever. And also for the crime that was in it when they bring up the actual text messages. And the other thing that I brought up, and I'm not surprised people don't bring it up, but it's almost like, I don't know if it's a political reason or whatever, but I know a lot about the NSA and computer security and the whole message store and forward thing. And so I say, why don't people be like, well, wouldn't the NSA have recorded all this stuff? And people say, oh yeah, we just don't want to mention it because they're not supposed to. And I'm like, yeah, well, if this was ISIS or Antifa or BLM, they would have it, right? Because they're supposed to think that they were the ones who caused it. But politically, unless they say we had a FISA warrant and the Trump people would freak out. And I was going there and I thought, well, is that really what is necessary? And again, Glenn pointed out, it's not necessary because they have a cooperating witness who turned over their text messages that may or may not have been deleted and the messages of other cooperating witnesses who were there, including Mark Meadows. Remember, Meadows turned over a lot of messages. And in my, focus on Tony Ornato as one of the key people who played a role in the coup as well as in potential cover-up, they did a Frontline, it wasn't Frontline, it was by the National Geographic about the Secret Service in 2018. And I put some clips up in my piece, but on Twitter. They explained and showed the Secret Service and multiple other agencies who are running and monitoring the State of the Union. And they have multiple comms. They get all this coordination about text and phones and stuff. And they show them, here's this person with this phone, and this is a Democratic protest group and blah, blah. And do you remember in the hearing where they had the anonymous voice of the person talking about the what they heard from the Secret Service people?
Right, yes.
Right. That person was probably one of the persons who was in the equivalent of the MAC, which is the Multi-Agency Control Center. And the person had not only heard these messages like that, they had the radio traffic. That group, the MAC group, that's multiple agencies that they use it to coordinate it. There's a reason that they gave him anonymity. Is because that person knows everything that's going on, all right? So when people, and they had heard it, okay, in real time, okay? Now they might not have the hard copy, but they would have scanned it, monitored it, and that proves there's a lot of data that they have out there. And so the little, like the fiction that's happening right now where they say they've been deleted, it's a little game that's played in order to save face, but also to flush out people who want their memories refreshed, okay? So by having that guy on that thing with his voice anonymous, they're sending a message out to people who did delete stuff or other stuff that's like, hey, we know what you did. We have the content. And if you want to come in now and cut a deal, now's the time. Otherwise, this is what we turn over to the Department of Justice when it comes to obstruction cases. And like I said, the point of the J6 committee is to get more people to come in. Their job isn't to convict the people. So they might get somebody who will say, look, I was told to delete it. I deleted it, but the person's name who told me to delete it was, okay? And then you've got the person behind the obstruction charge, okay? And the other part about this is the little political part, which I'm an activist, and I say a blogger and activist and a Vulcan, but I listened to Carol Leonnig and the people and the experts, and everybody's playing a little, not a game, but like a script. And I appreciate that. I think the J6 committee has at least anticipated 3 steps ahead. And by this, I mean, every time you see somebody who is saying, well, I don't really know what happened. I was deleted. They actually do know what happened if they were involved. They're hoping people won't find out about it. And they're giving themselves like, I think it was, who was it? The Department of Homeland Security former guy who said, oh, when I turned in my phone, all the texts were on it. It happened afterwards, okay? So that whole thing about it was deleted someplace else, it gives people like that an out, okay? And the spokespeople are creating plausible outs, all right? And the media are creating well, we have no idea. And the experts, and I know this because I like I said, I media trained the experts. They're not going to go on the record and say, here's how, if you really want to find deleted materials, you're going to do it. Because that would, give away the store. They also won't tell you that, well, if the NSA doesn't have it, the Israelis do, or Canada does, or GCHQ, because all of the other intelligence agencies record all this stuff that's going on, but they can't, like if they don't spy on the US, because they got a deal, they say, well, we can't do it, but we'll ask GCHQ to provide it for us. It's a little game that they play. So all those burner phones, all the private phones, all those things that were not secured, somebody's got tapes of all that stuff. And people say, well, it's like a needle in a haystack. It's not. It's a haystack filled of needles. There's so much information that it's hard to parse it. But believe me, people have it. So right now, and like, how do I prove it? Well, I'm not going to prove it right now because they're still gathering all the data. The question, which is kind of interesting to me, is what will be done with it? And I think a lot of deals will be cut, hoping to get closer and closer to Meadows, Giuliani, Cipollone, which, by the way, just now it was announced that he's been subpoenaed by the grand jury. Okay, Pat Cipollone. Breaking news. Dun, 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 dun.
Right.
So each one of those people, they have a lot of that data. And the question is, how many people are going to get busted for obstruction? And I'm betting that a lot of cases they're going to try and avoid coming out and, busting people for obstruction because they don't want people to know just how compromised they are. But there's going to be a lot of people who are there.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think, first of all, incredible report and information here from Spacco. I really appreciate it. I think we're really, I mean, this is why they're extending it, right? Like the January 6th hearings were initially just going to be a handful of hearings. They didn't give an exact number because they assumed they'd be ongoing. But I don't think anyone, I mean, maybe they had an idea that there would be a trickle of information coming down. But originally, it was just presented as just a handful of hearings that were going to look into this. And then, c'est la vie, end of story. But we are now seeing that as hearing after hearing concludes, the trickle of information does come down. Someone comes out and says, I'm ready to speak. Someone comes out and says, I have additional information. Some sort of additional information gets an additional person subpoenaed. Mm-hmm. And now they're looking into hearings in September. I mean, They do have to, I guess there is a deadline of if the House does flip and the GOP walk away with control of the House for the midterms, and then that would be their deadline. But it's certainly extending at least a few more months.
Yeah. The other thing I like about it, and this is, I guess it was because I was trying to, I used a quote from Back to the Future. Marty, you're not thinking fourth dimensionally, which is trying to think about the future and how they are looking forward at least 3 steps ahead. And one of the big ones that I was thinking about because of how Trump and his people act is, first, when they're caught, they lie. And it's like, those interrogation scenes of the cops, and they say, I never saw the person. And they go, here's a picture of you with the person. It's like, well, when I left them, they were alive. It's like, they're busted. Think about them. And it's one of my big things lately, of course, is when somebody is in the position of they're caught in the lie, how do they respond? If you look at how the Trump people responded and how kind of we hoped they would respond and they'd shut up and go away, is they don't. They double down and then they go on the attack. And the intimidation and the threats that they use when they are under attack is a really important thing to remember, as well as, they're lying and cheating is a big part of their MO. So one of the reasons that I was thinking about, well, why didn't the January 6th, committee just come out and say, here's what this people, that person said, is because if they did provide that, one, they would argue about its providence, or, I never said that, like, what's his name, Tony Ornato said, well, I never actually, said he did this, they'll argue with that. But you notice that he never came forward under oath to testify. It became, he lawyered up, and then they, shut him up. That's their blather. I think Sam pointed that out the other day. It's like, when they get the lie busted, they'll, under oath, you can see there. So what's their next step? They go on the attack and they threaten the people who are bringing them to justice. Okay. And by threaten in multiple ways, they threaten the people who are their Republican supporters. We won't support you anymore. We'll take away your money. We'll primary you. But also the threats of violence. And, they're both really scary. But I think about the people who did not come forward and the people who did and why they came forward, the witness intimidation by Trump and Meadows, all those people, as Kirshner pointed out, they should have been busted on that right away. Okay. And what's fascinating to me is he says there might be people who are being investigated that way, but the DOJ is not talking about it. I'm hoping that, but I really, I think that this is something that we have to at least be aware of is, so when they do act crazy, and I mean, when they go into threats, you need to prepare for it and flip it around on them, not unlike that woman who just got smeared on by Matt Gaetz and then turned it around and raised $2 million for abortion funding.
Oh, right. I saw it. That was fantastic. Yes.
And I wrote a piece about how Ruby Freeman and Shay, her daughter, they sued the OAN network. They won. It's a multi-million-dollar defamation case. They also have a case against the Gateway Pundit and Rudy Giuliani. But the actual death threats and all the criminal cases don't go forward easily because it's all this preponderance of evidence and stuff. So this is the thing that I've been talking to people. I suggested recently, which is somebody came forward and provided some information about an affair that in Missouri that this right-wing woman had with another right-wing legislator. And I said, lock down your accounts.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Lock down your accounts. I linked to Crash Override Network. And I said, these are the kinds of steps that you need to take and then flip it around on them because they're not going to go away quietly. They're going to, thrash and moan, and they're going to, tear down the entire democracy in the process. So be prepared for it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Spacco, always a pleasure when you call in.
Thanks.
What you brought up about the you brought up a lot. But specifically, I'm thinking about the everything with the January 6th hearings and what's to come, and basically strategy around what you just brought up about Matt Gaetz, the young woman who fundraised off of Matt Gaetz. It almost feels like sometimes I feel like, wow, maybe we will get through this next couple of months and actually come out ahead. But I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see what November holds. The
thing that I sometimes I fret about, which is the people who want to move forward and forgive and forget, and they're good people on both sides, blah blah blah. And the one of the ways that helps us is that they continue to be horrible. And just when you're like wanting to, cut them some slack, they will come and do something continually horrible. So in some ways, their continued horribleness is a gift. So we at least hopefully we won't blow. And the way that it's going to be blown in some ways, and I don't know, I've been following Marcy Wheeler for a long time, and people, making predictions about certain things is not necessarily hard. When I'm right, it's kind of like, I feel like, okay, so that's good, but I really want something to happen, from it, like something, it really happens. When it screws up, I want to know why it didn't, who caved in the wrong way, or who let somebody walk instead of, pressing them forward. That's the thing. That's dangerous to look out for. And I think there's going to be some of this, national security. We can't destroy the Secret Service, or we can't blah, 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 because we're all corrupt, and, you'll catch us out on other stuff. That's the thing to stay strong for and to keep pushing, is just like, you got to be able to nail these people down. And that's why I'm glad that they're going after the obstruction of justice stuff, because, they'll argue about intent for sedition and shit, stuff like that. But with this obstruction of justice, they'll find some new people, as well as the people who actually committed the sedition crimes. So
Right. Spocko,
Thanks.
have a great night. Always a pleasure when you call in, and please do call in again. I feel like it's been a while. Please, definitely.
On the scam economy. Woohoo!
Oh, we hear you. We do hear you every week, though. That's true. Have a great night, my friend. Take care.
Good night.
All right. I think maybe we'll do. Someone wanted to call in before because they had let's take this call. Hey, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Matt, it's Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony. And as you call me, I just remember I have pictures I need to get you for something. My apologies. Yes. I really dropped the ball on that.
It's okay. I've been busy.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I will have a few days in the next week or so to get you those pictures. So they're
awesome.
Coming.
Yeah. Especially with your fly new haircut.
Oh, that's the problem too. I don't want the new haircut in the pretend I have the old haircut when I send you those pictures.
Okay.
Not that I don't like the haircut. It's just that every now and then, as you guys know, I cut my hair short just to like refresh the roots, the hair. Mm-hmm. But my real style is the longer.
Well,
yeah.
the shorter hair will make modeling easier.
Good. All right, there we go.
Yeah. And then I can do the hair like your usual style.
Perfect.
But yeah, you get in two parts of the scam economy intro back to back.
Right. Literally got the voice of the intro, and now we have the visual of the intro on the phone. What would you like to talk about, Tony?
I was gonna talk about for the first time in a long time, being in a situation where I'm around a lot more conservative people. I'm working in a fly shop now.
A what shop?
A fly shop, like fly fishing, a fly fishing store.
Cool.
Back in some outdoor retail. You
get to be outdoors too?
No. Fortunately, unfortunately, fortunately right now, because it's been consistent like 100+ degree weather for like a couple of months now. But no, it's just we sell outdoor stuff. So
got it.
So,
I was just
yeah,
right.
Yeah, but it's because it's like primarily geared around like fly fishing and hunting. Most of the clientele and the vast majority of the people that I work with are all a bit more right-leaning, and so it's been an interesting week and some change, kind of navigating and acclimatizing to that, and learning how to keep my big mouth shut and not say things too bluntly. The upshot is they don't care about.
Maybe we could take back. I don't know if it ever was ours, but maybe we could make fly fishing leftist.
That would be swell. Like my previous experience.
Do they throw the fish back?
Yeah, a lot of it's catch and release.
And there you go.
But like there was one old guy was helping today, like bragging to my manager about shooting an elephant and we get those kind of like rich people who don't like bat an eyelash about coming in and dropping like $1,500 to $2,000 on like
That is a huge difference, though. Even if you're someone who catches fish to take home to eat, and shooting. I mean, you know this. I'm not telling you
Yeah,
anything new, but even that is a huge difference in like
yeah,
if you're shooting and killing elephants, an animal that's so closely like on the scale of self oh my god,
awareness and
awareness, thank you,
intelligence.
and it's yes, as human beings, and also an animal that's not as abundant as fish are. On top of all of that, I mean,
Yeah,
you're a real yeah. I can't think of
yeah.
any scenario where killing an elephant is kosher.
Yeah, I have yeah, so I have to spend more time around like demonstrably like gross people, or people with demonstrably gross ideas about like how to navigate the world.
I feel like
Um
elephant hunter is a completely different. Like if someone comes in with
I wouldn't
with a
I would not call them a hunter. Like,
sure, yes. If someone comes in with like a Gatson flag and is like got a shirt that says like I love to hunt deer or whatever, and they're out there fishing for fish, even that, and they got they're like maybe even a MAGA hat. That's how the height I want to bring this to. Even that guy, if he's not killing elephants, he's above the elephant hunter.
right. Yeah, no, for real. It's just but but it's full-time hours. I get decent benefits. It's, you know, more resembles a living wage, and it's like a really chill, laid back shop work in, and I get to leave the day like not utterly exhausted and physically broken from like having to uh do multiple people's jobs simultaneously, as like the last 3 corporations that I've worked for have been. So, silver linings. It's given me an opportunity to kind of spring back financially after all of this COVID nonsense. And
Right.
I'm,
Wait, you said you're
I'm a
doing like you said you're like doing multiple jobs that you're not really supposed to. Is that what you said? I'm sorry if I misheard.
yeah. So yeah,
Is it a small business?
I,
Is it a small business you work for, or is it a chain?
no, it's a chain. Like so the
Oh, then
company like actually.
you should anonymously send emails to corporate as if you're a customer and say you went and there was a single worker who was doing all the work, multiple jobs, and that your local
Oh,
whatever the store is needs to hire more people because
no, no, no,
that's
no. That's not the situation at my current job. Like
oh okay
previous jobs. Yeah, yeah,
okay
yeah.
okay
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
yeah
no,
okay
this one's way more laid back, and we are in the process of hiring more people because we got a bunch of like kids going back to college right now, getting ready to start college again, and so they were just working seasonally. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I mean, it is one of 3 about to be 4 jobs. But I can afford to be a patron again, so that's exciting. I find it exciting that I can finally resume all my Patreon and add a couple extra Patreon subscriptions, and
ah.
be back in the fund the bender monies.
I want to say that is not the most important thing here, but I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you and the work that you do, and yeah, no, it's not the most important thing, but it's the icing on the cake indicator that
Oh,
my finances are turning around.
there we go. And who doesn't
Uh,
love icing on cake? Who doesn't love cake? As I
I mean,
choke.
I enjoy cakes from time to time, but I don't know if I would say that I love cakes.
I'm actually more of a cupcake guy. I think cupcakes
Okay.
are much better.
I'm more of a pie girl.
Oh, there we go. I mean, depends what kind of pie. I mean, I could go for apple pie a la mode. Throw a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top, and you won me over on the pie argument. But and also cakes. Depends what kind of cake. I love an angel food cake. Carrot cake, not so much. So again, depends on what kind of cake we're talking about.
For sure. Ironically, my favorite pie is cheesecake.
Pie is not. Oh well, you're being okay. I get what you're doing here. Yes, cheesecake is one of my faves too. It's got to be regular original cheesecake. Don't throw any extras into it.
No,
Definitely
no,
not chocolate cheesecake. No. Give me regular original cheesecake.
No. It's all about this espresso cheesecake that I had to make in culinary school. It was.
I don't like coffee or anything
divine.
You can enjoy it, but not for me.
So on that note, we need. I wanna work out a time with you where I want to do a culinary segment with you.
All right. That'd be brand new.
Yeah, I mean, I'll brainstorm some ideas that we can tie it into the usual like show programming, whether it's or something like right wing adjacent that we can dive into some stuff. But like food's relevant. Food's really relevant to a lot of different stuff, and I like talking about food, even though I never want to work in the industrial culinary field again. I sure enjoy the time that
I hate cooking. So maybe that would be an interesting dynamic. I mean, I honestly can't. It's not even like a thing where like, oh, I'm not good at it, or a cliche like, oh, such a guy. No, literally, I just don't. It pains me to do it. I hate it so much. So that could be fun, actually. It could make for some really good content with a cooking segment with me.
I mean, not necessarily like talking about how to prepare any kind of foods, but just talking about like some, maybe some food history, like I like
oh,
to
you
say
just
that.
reminded me, actually, and I'm glad you did it. I totally forgot. I gotta get back to the guy with the banana segment idea. He reached out to me.
Oh yes.
Shit. I dropped the ball. See, this is the problem. I can't. That's Patreon. Not saying this to you, Tony. You've already done it. Patreon.com/Matt Binder, folks. I need someone to hold to track this shit for me, or I gotta figure some system out. I used to not be this bad. I mean, I used to literally be able to. Someone would have recommended something, and because there was only a few listeners in the early days, I would easily just be able to, make a note of it and then turn around. And I wasn't doing 20 different streams a week. I was able to turn around and reach out to that person and get them on the show. It was almost like an automatic thing. Now it's like I got a list of people to have on, a list of possible video segments, a list of different, literally like pieces I'm working on, and it's just like I can't do it myself anymore. It's too much.
Yeah, two shows is more than twice the work of one show, especially when you're doing them by yourself.
Yeah, and the thing is with Scam Economy, I don't know why I do it like this, but it just feels like the better way to go about that show is that I pre-record the episode. I think it started that way because a lot of the earlier guests couldn't do the live at 9 p.m. Also,
the time zone, yeah.
Yes. Also, I've been finding that it's a very different audience. Like I think political reporters and even like the people I have on this show, like political streamers, and they're more used to. I put out a piece. There's going to be media of all sorts, even independent media, ready to talk to me, and I got to be ready for that. With Scam Economy, the people in that space. It's a very much smaller space. Also, they're not as obviously I've had people on who are, but less people are able to do a 9 p.m. stream on a whim. Right. A lot more goes into having to nail down a time for people who cover that space.
Absolutely. And and it works too on like an editing and information conveyance level. Like the
Scam Economy is definitely more. Is definitely this show isn't edited at all, other than like
Right.
I fixed the sound levels, or at least attempt to for the podcast version. But there's very little editing here because it's a live show.
right.
With Scam Economy, it is a little bit more edited, and I think you're right. It does help to the fact that I can do that because it's probably a little bit more confusing, and I have more ability to make it clearer with the editing and and putting the information outright like that. Absolutely, you're right about that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So like to reiterate the really important takeaway from this, go sign up for Patreon to support this show so that Matt can afford some help.
Damn, free marketing strategy there from Tony. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
More hands makes less work.
There you go. I cannot wait to see what you're able to put together for the Doomed intro. Really excited to work with you again for that.
Likewise.
And thanks for calling in. I'll talk to you later.
Always a pleasure. Take care, Matt.
Oh, and congrats on the new income stream.
Thanks. We'll keep it trucking.
Take care.
Later.
Bye. All right. I think we will. All right. One more call. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Matt. This is Dr. Gus calling from Florida.
Dr. Gus from Florida. Haven't heard from you in a little bit, my friend. How's everything?
I know it's been a while. I've been off. I've been on vacation. So, trying to detox from all this. Not from you, just from thinking about these calls.
Oh,
I put a lot of work into these
I
calls.
honestly, I'm someone who's never like a big finally vacation guy. Like I would do it to be with my family, spend time with the kids, but I honestly like this year I'm like, oh my god, I cannot wait to just like not worry about anything for a week other than my kids.
Yeah. Do you have anything planned on the horizon or not?
Next week is just spending time with family upstate. And then in a few weeks, another family trip. That one is going to a specific location. We'll talk a bit more about that as that one gets closer. We will have some fun talking about that one, I think. But we'll save that for when it gets closer. So yeah, I'm taking 2 weeks, not back to back, but 2 weeks to just not think about work. I'm excited. Although
I hope you actually,
knowing how I am,
actually...
I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm not gonna like actually probably like do like you're not gonna see me like streaming from upstate or something, but I probably will. Something will inevitably break on Twitter that's gonna make me come up with some idea. I'm gonna have to sit down and take notes for when I come back the following week. I know that's gonna happen, but it is what it is. That's what working in news is all about.
Yeah, I hope you actually tell us about the vacation when you're back, because we're still waiting for Sam Cedar's Disney monologue. He's been promising it for a while, and we haven't gotten it.
Well, there you go. I mean, you'll get. You're already gonna make me ruin it, but you'll get a Disney monologue.
Nice.
It was only possible because the grandparents decided that they wanted to give my mom is a big she's not quite a Disney adult because she's not like obsessed with like the lore and everything. She's just a fan of the theme parks, and as a gift for the kids, the grandparents decided to pull it off, and I can't believe we're doing it, but we're doing it for a few days.
Is it their first time?
It will be my daughter's first time. It'll be my son's first time at World. We went to Disneyland for one day many, many years ago because I went on a work trip, and I was able to convince my job at the time to instead of having me get a hotel with the rest of the people they were sending over, they let me get my own hotel and I brought the fam with me because I knew that was the only way we were going to be able to do a Disneyland trip, is if my job at the time was at least paying for one aspect of it, and they agreed to do that. So I just had to pay for the flights for them and the 1 day ticket to Disneyland. So my son has been to Disneyland for a day.
Oh, well, I'm sure good luck to you, though. I hope you make it. It's rough out there. It gets pretty hot.
Yes, I know. We're going at the absolute worst possible time. But according to Grandma, that is like among the cheapest time to go. So because no one wants to be in Florida at that time. So that's why that works out like that.
Cool. Well, what I'm calling about, something quick first, before I forget, about so crypto. Have you heard about the Solana thing that just broke a few hours ago?
I literally am watching it break. It's so hard to. I don't want to be. I got to listen to the callers. Don't want to be disrespectful, and I'm trying to like just eyeball this. But it looks like something that I cannot eyeball to understand. I need to like sit down and read it. So I had to stop looking because I can't. I need to listen to who's on the phone with me. Are you calling in to give me a rundown?
Yeah, just quick. What I know so far is like 5 million. There's the Phantom wallet system that's supposed to be like making wallets for like friendly to like the average user. So you can just have an app phone. Apparently.
Right, I know what Solana is, but thank you for explaining to people who don't. But I can't go. Keep going. I could not understand what was going on with this. It looked like a different sort of thing than usual with these. But go ahead, continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Right. So yeah, the Solana is the crypto from all those venture capitalists, and basically they were trying to get more people to buy into it. They paid. There's this other company called Phantom. They created the Phantom wallet, which is a wallet for Solana only, and it was supposed to like be a mobile app. And now today, so it was pretty successful. It was supposed to be like their big project to bring it to the people. And then last I heard, there were $5 million missing from Solana wallets, and then the only that the Solana Foundation has said is, as far as we know, the hardware wallets are unaffected. But who uses hardware wallets, And then the Phantom Foundation says, oh, we don't think this is a Phantom only problem. So they're implying that it's a broader Solana problem, but they don't know what the hell's going on. And there's like 5 million tokens $5 million worth of Solana drained from random wallets, apparently. And that's us, apparently these guys are like kind of fighting each other now to see whose fault it is.
Right. I will be on top of this. That will not be this week's Scam Economy episode. For those of you interested, this week's Scam Economy episode is going to be, and I think it's gonna be a fun one. I haven't recorded it yet, but we are going to be talking about and focusing on that the Spice DAO, the DAO that crowdfunded to buy that rare copy of Dune, and how everything fell apart. It will be, I think, a lot of fun. I mean, I've been following what's been going on, having on a reporter who's been covering it from the very beginning. It is going to be a very fun episode. I'll have to probably cover the Solana thing another day.
Yeah. It's almost too much, huh? You need to have 3 times a week now to keep up with what's going on in that.
I mean, I could literally do. I mean, I could do this. I could do both shows every single day. But I think there are, other people probably covering what I cover on Doomed regularly enough too, where it's the topic, the actual topics are getting the coverage. But for Scam Economy, I think you're right. I could probably cover something every single day, and somehow be maybe the only person covering it, or maybe the only video coverage of it, or maybe the only podcast coverage of it. But not enough people are covering what's going on there. People should check out all the people who are doing the good work. Molly White with Web3 is going great. I know David Gerard is always dropping stuff. Of course, the Crypto Critics Corner pod guys are always covering stuff. But even they seem to be focused mostly on like the intricacies of the lender stuff. They haven't been on some of the other stuff, which is fine. I mean, they're focusing on probably what the biggest story in crypto is right now, which is totally legit. So that's just basically me saying, to your point, there's so much going on, literally impossible for one outlet to cover it all.
Yeah, definitely. If you have a second, I was hoping to talk to you also a little bit about the Dutch farmer thing, since I guess that's what today's show is about.
Yeah, sure, please.
So I have some family visiting from the Netherlands. My partner's parents are visiting, and her dad comes from a pretty big farming family. And
what did have?
So we were talking about. Go ahead.
Do they? Well, go ahead. I'm guessing you talked to him about it.
Yeah, so we were I was catching up with the episode. I listened to the interview at like double speed, and I was catching them up on it as it went. And what they were telling me, so he was telling me the story that to kind of like add on to what your guest was saying, that they've known that this was coming for a long time. He says that his brother.
Who is they? Who is they?
The farmers.
Okay.
Yeah. So his brother was a dairy farmer, and 12 years ago, he decided to close down his farm because he saw that this was coming. Because basically, so nitrogen, the whole nitrogen thing, what nitrogen is when it comes to farming is cow shit, pig shit, is shit, animal shit.
Right.
It's finding a way to get rid of or move the shit somewhere without contaminating everything. So basically, they've known for at least a decade that this was coming, and they closed down the farm because I guess the size of their farm and the amount of work that it would take to be compliant, it wasn't worth it. So I imagine this is what always happens, even here in the U.S., right? All the medium to small farmer is generally more quote unquote inefficient because they're smaller scale. You get less of the economy of scale for things. You have less money to hire consultants that can tell you how to do these things. Not so much how to be compliant, not just how to be compliant with the laws, but actually how to do the thing, right? To actually manage the manure or the cow, manure the best way possible. So yeah, basically all the majority of these farmers must be that are protesting now. They're like smaller farmers because the bigger companies have been ready for this for a long time. I have a friend that he's a veterinarian that works as a nutritionist in cattle nutritionist in the Netherlands. And I asked him like how when I heard about this, I was like, how is this going to affect, like, are you guys going to lose your job? And he's basically saying like, no, we're just going to make a bunch of money because the big farms are going to get bigger, and we're nutritionists. We handle nitrogen. So yeah, basically all these big farms are going to consolidate even further. And so this is a trend that also goes on. It has been going on in the U.S. and it's also kind of on purpose, right? Like the governments generally, the strategy has been to make farms bigger, so they're more. So it's easier to, if you decide to change something, you just have to convince a couple people to do it. If the farms are all fewer farms and really big ones, and it's easier to make changes like that. So yeah, what he was telling me is the way they handle manure in the Netherlands. So they're the biggest polluter, I guess, per capita in the EU in terms of nitrogen, and they have a system. He was telling me about their system. It's like they have all these very stringent rules. For example, they can only have the manure on the fields 3 months out of the year. And when they spread it, they cannot just spread it on top of the field as if it was fertilizer. They have to dig it, kind of like inject it into the ground. And they can't just wash it off the farm. They have to collect it into silos the rest of the year. And then once it's collected into silos, they can either ship it off the farm somewhere else to be used as fertilizer somewhere else, or they can bury it, right? And even with that system, they were not being good enough to be compliant, and that's why all these farms are closing down. So if they deemed themselves to be not good enough with all these things that they were doing, compare what the U.S. is doing with nitrogen, we're just crazy. It's insane. I worked as a veterinarian when I was doing research in 3 of the biggest dairy in Florida, and basically what they do in Florida is the farms are built like a slow slope, and when the manure, when the shit hits the ground, it gets just swept away with water. Every few minutes, every like 20 minutes, this giant hose of water just gets turned on, and it washes off the manure into a funnel, and into the center, or like an area of the farm that gets collected, and then it gets put into an open pit, and that open pit is just used to collect the manure, and it's just like a giant pool of shit and water, and it's just left there, methane seeping into the groundwater, and eventually, maybe, hopefully, drying out. And once it dries out in an open pit, this will be illegal to do in the Netherlands, for example. But once it dries out here, it just gets dug up, put into trucks, and sold somewhere else. It also gets this water put into irrigation pipes and just spread all over the fields to irrigate, right? To as a fertilizer, but dissolved in water. So it goes all up into the air, creates it just puts like manure droplets into the air. So there's a lot of problems with air pollution for workers, all over the groundwater. So for the Netherlands, doing good management, it's a problem because they have a relatively small country, and it's very highly populated and very developed. So they had to actually take care of the land. What happens here is these farms, they just go for it. They just keep just dumping nitrogen into the water into the ground, and then when it becomes too much, too contaminated, when the groundwater becomes too contaminated for the cows, or when by some miracle the state finds them too much, they just pick up land somewhere else. They quote unquote move. So go ahead.
I was going to say, oh no, my AirPods just made the noise that it's going to die soon.
Okay. So basically, the what's going on in the Netherlands now, it's going to have to happen here too. We just can't delay it because, like everything in the U.S., there's pretty much free real estate, so the farms move around. But after they leave everything contaminated. Right now, the town of Bell, Florida. Maybe I'm saying too much. Anyway, there's a big.
Oh, right. Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Is there some breaking? Is there a scoop? You just let it go here?
Yeah. If you have anyone that's interested in writing a story about contamination in groundwater in Florida, hit me up. I have some inside info.
Message me, please. Hit me up DMs on Twitter or my email, and please definitely do bring it to me.
All right, I'll shoot you a message on Twitter. But yeah, so what the Netherlands is going through right now, we're gonna have to go through it at some point, because really we're like really completely fucking the groundwater. It's just that no one really tests it.
I mean, what I brought up earlier on the interview about like trying to make it analogous to something here with the coal miners, I think that is like we need to make it clear to these people who do these things for a living, that we are not going to leave you behind. There is not going to be any time period where you are out of work, where you are not making money. We are going to seamlessly transition you into this equivalent, more green, more sustainable job, doing what you do. And there'll be a training program where there's pay. We need to make this clear. It cannot be these jobs are going to be killed. It needs to be a clear transition that's completely covered and completely there'll be no loss in income.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the U.S., we already have the infrastructure to do that with farms. All these land grant universities were created with extension programs to teach the farmers how to farm. So we have already a pipeline of professors that go out to farms and give advice to
Right,
the farmers in the area
it's
on how to
clear
improve their crop.
it's clear we need these people to do what they do, whether it be energy or agriculture. It's just that the way they are currently doing it is not sustainable. So, we're not telling them they're unnecessary or obsolete or no, we just need you to use your expertise in that field in a new way. I mean, it seems like a pretty easy sell as long as you're selling it correctly and not like messing up the messaging. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And the infrastructure is already there. The executive powers are already there. All we need is, Brandon to, decide to do something about it, but or someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm just thinking about everything going on right now. But this was a very great call. I really enjoyed hearing this background with your family and their experience in the area specifically with this. So I really appreciate it, Dr. Gus. And do hit me up with that email. Always a pleasure to hear your calls. And feel free to call in anytime.
All right, great. Thanks for taking my call, man. Have a good night.
Take care. All right, folks. That's it. That's the show. Cameron, my phone, my earpods are gonna die. I'm sorry, my friend. It's late. People are gonna miss your call. Call in Thursday. I know you'll be there. Anyone else who wanted to call in and missed out, please call in. And I see there's a few people. Please call in Thursday. I'm sorry. Gotta end the calls. Closing Skype. It's primary day. I wanted to touch upon that really quick. I meant to get to some Alex Jones stuff, but I don't think we're going to have the time, and we're going to have an Alex Jones episode, so we won't miss out on it. It's just not going to be now. But I wanted to get to this primary stuff. It's looking like right now, the Arizona Senate, I'm going to just talk about some important races really quick. Looks like that Arizona Senate primary with Blake Masters, Peter Thiel's boy, too close to call right now. He's leading by 5%, Blake Masters. So, only it looks like it's not all, I think half is in. Half the vote is in, so obviously too close to call. Carrie Lake, the Trump-endorsed Republican candidate for governor, looks like she is going to lose. She's going down to the more old school Republican conservative candidate, Karen Robson. 10% gap currently between the both of them, with 50% counted. What else? Trump, by the way, everyone was wondering if Trump was going to endorse Eric Greitens, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, my bad, or Eric Schmidt in the race in Missouri, the Senate seat in Missouri. And Trump yesterday announced he was endorsing Eric. That's right. In a race where both of the leading candidates are named Eric, Trump endorsed just Eric. No last name. Amazing. Well, we now know that Eric Schmidt has beat Eric Greitens, and apparently Greitens came in third from what I'm seeing. Didn't even come in second. Greetings had a very specifically. I mean, I don't think Schmidt is much better, but Greetings had a specific, pretty. He was the guy with that ridiculous ad, with like the raid on people's homes, and he had a abuse allegation scandal, right? His ex-wife accused him of physically abusing her and his children. Horrible. But apparently this takes Dems completely out of the picture for the Missouri Senate race, from what I'm seeing. You know, it's not looking bad for Dems in the Senate, in my view. The House is going to be rough, maybe. But this is, to me, this is the real takeaway here. This is the real takeaway here. This is what I want you all to walk away from tonight from. Oh, and this is a good one. Hold on, before I get to the takeaway, this is a fun one. Ron Watkins, currently in last place. Dude apparently has just around 1,400 votes right now. Q. Going down in flames. Allegedly, Q. Going down in flames. Apparently, on his live stream, he said, "I just hope I'm not in last place. That would be terrible. I win. Ideally." And apparently, the election night party for Ron Watkins is on Zoom, on live streams, not an actual real life event, which is what it is. It is what it is. What will be fun is Carrie Lake is going to go balls to the walls, I think, on election fraud. I think she is going to completely lose it. And I think she is going to hurt the Republican candidate. I'm not saying, Arizona Republican candidate's not going to win for governor. Who knows? I don't know the dynamics there. But she was without a doubt, in my opinion, going to scream to the rooftops about election fraud and try to hurt the candidate who wins for the GOP, which would be fun. Of course. Of course that'll be fun. How would that not be fun? All right, but here's the takeaway from tonight. Here's what everyone should be, and this should be proof positive to people on what Dems going forward should do. Here we go. There was, in Kansas, a vote on whether the Kansas Constitution should be amended to remove protections of abortion rights. Basically, they took it to the voters to see whether the Kansas Constitution should be amended after the Dobbs ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. Kansas. This is Kansas. Should the Kansas Constitution be amended to remove protections of abortion rights? This is a screenshot from a few minutes ago. Over 61% of Kansas voters say no, in favor of abortion rights. Only 38.5% say yes, remove protections of abortion rights. Kansas! And there was a hardcore campaign in Kansas for that no vote to the point where this was making news. A text message campaign going out to Kansas voters, trying to trick them into thinking that a yes vote would be the pro-choice vote, when it wasn't. This text message was sent out to voters yesterday. Women in Kansas are losing their choice on reproductive rights. Voting yes on the amendment will give women a choice. Vote yes to protect women's health. One problem: the vote to protect women's health and give women a choice, the pro-choice vote, was no. So even this skeevy anti-choice campaign from the pro-life movement to trick people into voting yes failed dramatically. Abortion rights are a winning issue in the United States of America in 2022. Say the fucking word, Democrats. Abortion. Run on this. You want to turn the midterms around? Run on the Supreme Court decision from the conservative justices, bolstered by the justices on the Supreme Court, thanks to George W. Bush and Donald J. Trump, who made this happen. Run on this issue. The United States of America does not want to go back to back alley abortions. Does not want to roll the clock back on women's reproductive rights, on women's rights to choose, on choice, on health rights, on privacy rights. Run on abortion, Democrats. Kansas overwhelmingly shuts down a chance to put this in the Constitution. Amend their Constitution to remove protections of abortion rights. Kansas! I mean, if that's not the takeaway from tonight, I mean, you could look at wins and losses in each state. I see Cori Bush has won in her primary. I see Rashida Tlaib has won in her primary race. Wins on the left, obviously. I'm sure there's some losses I haven't seen. I'm sure we can parse the Republican races and see which wins were bad for Dems and which wins were good for Dems. But to me, this amendment that was shot down by Kansas voters should make it loud and clear for Democrats. People are pissed about what the Supreme Court did to Roe. Run on abortion. Run on abortion. Run on abortion. Say it. Say it. It's that simple. All right, folks. That is the show. I will see you on Scam Economy on Thursday. And definitely follow me on Twitter at Matt Binder. If you have yet to become a Patreon and can afford to do so, think about doing it. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. It's a huge help. Especially after losing some at the beginning of the month, because that's when cards get declined and such. It happens. Thanks again, Sid Fishes over on Twitch for another 300 bits. Vehemental over on Twitch makes a great point. Don't just run on abortion, make pro-choice law. Absolutely right. Make it clear that's the case. Thank you. Super chats. Thank you, Dad. There's some super chats I still have to read. Renee, Herbie says the feeling is gone. Only you and I. Oh, Renee had a pretty good character the last time. If people don't know Herbie, we'll talk about it more next time. Renee. Renee says geared wielders. Regarding the first chat. Oh, is the far right candidate. Oh, the far right former NL candidate involved. Right, and I asked. Right. Renee also says Secret Service shoots Stoffel. What's that about? Yeah. Tokyo Hans says next week on Doomed cooking. Matt bakes a pandemic pie with a flood of acai or whatever. Contemplates on why they don't change the meanings between asteroids and hemorrhoids. What? All right. And Kowalski with a super sticker offering me that sweet cup of coffee. Thank you so much, Kowalski. And there was a message I wanted, a regular chat I had highlighted for myself. Jump Kick Man says, Matt, you should start a quasi-fake cryptocurrency as a joke, just to use as little tokens on your show for super chats, LOL. Problem is, that's what Dogecoin was meant to be at first, and then it became an actually, speculatively traded asset. It would obviously go bad, and then I'd end up like that. Sometimes even the best ideas aren't going to work out. CFC Hart says, is Matt wearing a wig? What? No. It's my hair. You want to see my scalp? Here you go. Let me. There you go. See? Jeez. My hair's just short right now. You're used to seeing it long. It'd be pretty funny if I was wearing a wig. I should wear. Oh, Ezekiel Mordecai with a $10 super chat. Jeez, coming in at the last minute here. We're all doomed. And with that, who should I rate on Twitch? Who's on right now? Really quick, throw me somebody. Who should I rate on Twitch? Let's do this. Boom, bada bing. Who should I rate on Twitch? Let's see. Who's open and online right now on Twitch? I gotta do Keffels because she's back. How do I know she's got a lot of people watching right now, but she was banned from Twitch. I had mentioned on the show, I think last week, she was doing a stream on the harassment she was receiving, and Twitch banned her for showing the harassment she was receiving. Ridiculous. And literally just earlier today, she was unbanned after over 2 weeks of not being able to stream. I gotta send the love over to Keffels, and we're gonna be doing a stream together soon. So that's who gets it. Absolutely. Everyone who goes into Keffels' stream on Twitch, say Matt Binder welcomes you back to Twitch. Do that for me, okay? Everybody say Matt Binder welcomes you back to Twitch when you get rated. And everyone go over to twitch.tv/Matt Binder right now so you could be sent over to Twitch, to Keffels' Twitch. Patreon.com/Matt Binder, YouTube.com/Matt Binder, Twitch.tv/Matt Binder, at Matt Binder on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find me, search Matt Binder. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I will see you all on Thursday if you tune into the Scam Economy. If not, then I will see you all next time on Doomed.